Chapter 46:27. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and looked at him deeply. He didn't say anything and just made an inviting gesture. Sire, you must be tired after escorting them all the way back. Why don't you rest in the residence first? Seeing this, the masked man nodded and said, All right, I also want to talk to you about Yu's apprenticeship. Saying this, he walked forward with large strides. Mother, he is 17. He is a guard given to us by Pan family. It was being carried by Fengjiu, so she hugged her mother's neck and whispered, Mother, this masked man is very strange. He kept asking me to call him master. However, he saved Yu from bad people, so he should be considered a good person. Also, Mother, there's also Uncle Murong who sent us back. However, he left after sending us to the city gate. Uncle Murong? Fengjiu was slightly startled. After thinking for a while, he said, Is it Murong Yixian? At that time, she heard her brother say that two people took away the three children. One was wearing a mask, and the other was wearing a white robe that fluttered like an immortal. However, the last time she saw Murong Yixian, he was traveling outside and looked like he had been through hardships. He wasn't wearing white either. Therefore, when she heard her brother mention those two people, she guessed for a long time. However, she couldn't figure out who those two people were. Today, she saw that the masked man's strength was unfathomable. As for the other person, she didn't see him. As it turned out, it was Murong Yixian, and he had already left. It's Uncle Murong. Howard looked at her and said, I saw that he didn't want to enter the city. He stood at the city gate and looked at the city in a daze. Then, he said that he wanted to leave. He just left not long before Mother arrived. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. I know. When I see him in the future, I will thank him personally. Mother, where is Father? Why didn't Father come? Yu looked all around but didn't see their father. Fengjiu looked at the daughter in his arms and smiled gently. Your father is in seclusion. He is not here. Along the way, Fengjiu carried Yu with Hao and Mu Chun at his side. After arriving at the Feng residence, Fengjiu first let people take the masked man to rest. Then, he took the three children to the rear courtyard. Feng girl, who is that masked man? Why does he look strange? Feng Sanyuan said with some worry. Thinking back to when they asked him to go and rest first, that person stood motionless, and his pair of eyes kept staring at Yu. That appearance was as if he was afraid that they would take the child away, which made them feel baffled. Fengjiu smiled and said, Is the benefactor of the three children. As for who he is, I didn't tell him on the way back, but he said that he is Yu-er's master. He probably wants to accept Yu-er as his disciple. Yu-er is so young. What master does she need? What's more, who is more suitable to teach Yu-er than you? Feng Xiao frowned. Thinking of that person who entered the residence, she didn't know who he was. She also didn't know where he came from. Her heart was somewhat uneasy. Well, we will talk about the other matters later, Fengjiu said. Then, she looked at the three children sitting in the courtyard. Her divine sense swept over their bodies. She felt that the blood curse in Mu Chun and Mu Yu's body still existed, but the blood curse in Hao Er's body had already disappeared. Her heart couldn't help but move. Chapter 46:28. Mother, after we were sent away by that blood demon's blood curse, the three of us fell into a forest in the mortal world. I think it might be because I'm not the biological child of father and mother, so the blood curse was broken by me that night. But the curse on my younger brother and sister's body couldn't be broken, and they also couldn't remember father and mother. How? Carefully said, recalling what happened when he brought his younger brother and sister to wander outside without the accompaniment of an adult. Big brother was in a lot of pain at that time. He kept shouting and sweating a lot. We were very scared at that time, but we also took care of him. Yu also said. Hearing this, Fengjiu's heart ached. It's Mother's fault. Mother didn't take good care of you. No, Mother's very good. We like Mother the most. The three children said in unison, looking at her with eyes full of admiration. Hearing this, Fengjiu's beautiful face couldn't help but reveal a smile. She also came to their side and sat down, carrying Yu to sit on her lap, and said, How you continue. And because my strength hadn't fully recovered at that time, I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to take care of my younger brother and sister if they encountered danger. So we stayed in that forest for a few days and then left. At that time, we went to that city where my younger brother and sister were almost kidnapped and sold. I met Pan Ning there. He told her every detail of what happened in the outside world in these 2 years, talking until the sky turned dark. At that time, that mountain demon old ancestor grabbed my younger sister and threw her to the ground very hard. It was that masked man who suddenly appeared and caught my younger sister and saved her. But when we asked him, he didn't say what his name was. Later, Uncle Morong also came, and they sent us back. How? Or said, and stopped here, looking at his mother. When Fengjiu heard that the 3 children were in danger in that sect, her heart tightened, and the killing intent in her heart also surged. Such a righteous sect actually pushed the 3 children out when they encountered danger. It was really unforgivable. But when she heard that the 3 children were finally out of danger because of that masked man, her heart also relaxed. Fortunately, they turned misfortune into a blessing. Otherwise, she really didn't dare to imagine. Mother, although that masked strange uncle is strange, but he's very good to you. Yuer's soft voice sounded in Fengjiu's ears. She was worried that her mother would think that strange uncle was a bad person. So she explained, if he didn't save Yuer wouldn't be able to see Mother now. Moreover, he also treated Yuer well. He isn't a bad person. Mother. Alluring Ghost Doctor. Chapter 46:29. Hearing these words, Fengjiu couldn't help but was slightly startled. Then somewhat laughing, he asked, Yuer, why did you say he is pitiful? Yuer raised her head and looked at her mother. Then, blinking her clear and pure eyes, she softly said, because if I don't talk to him, he will just sit there and not talk. He also doesn't talk to other people. Moreover, he will often be in a daze, as if he is thinking about something. She said again, but when Yuer talks to him, he will be very happy. He will laugh, and will also let me call him master. Moreover, he will also take out delicious fruits for Yuer to eat. Mother, Yuer stealthily kept some fruits that even big brother and brother don't have for Mother to eat. She was just like a cunning little fox. While speaking, she took out the fruits that she had hidden on the way from her space and handed them over to her mother, as if presenting a treasure. This is 9 treasure fruit? Fengjiu somewhat shocked looking at that spiritual fruit that Yuer had taken out. That was an orange-colored fruit, which was the size of an adult male's fist. It took the shape of a flower bud, but in fact that flower bud-like fruit shape was formed by 9 pieces of fruit flesh. The fruit tip was suffused with bright and glistening red color, and the fruit emitted a faint, alluring fragrance. Just smelling this fragrance would make people feel refreshed, as if their whole body was bathed in a gentle spiritual power. Feng Sanyuan, Feng Xiao, and others at the side looked at that fruit and were somewhat surprised. They had also eaten many precious and rare spiritual fruits, but they had never seen this one that Yuer had taken out. But 9 treasure fruit? Looking at Fengjiu's appearance, it seemed this thing was not ordinary. Mother, what is 9 treasure fruit? Yuer blinked her beautiful eyes and curiously asked. Fengjiu looked at her, then couldn't help but shake his head and said with a smile, Yuer, it seems this strange uncle has some background. Mother had only seen this 9 treasure fruit in books. Didn't expect, Mother, you ate 2 of them on the way. She stretched out her chubby little finger and shook it. Then with a proud face, this is the 3rd fruit, but you was unwilling to eat it, so while strange uncle wasn't looking, I hid it. Strange uncle didn't know. Xiaojiu, is this fruit very precious? What was the use of it? Will Yuer's body be able to endure eating 2? Feng Xiao couldn't help but ask. Fengjiu chuckled and said, this fruit is not ordinary. It can be considered a top-grade immortal fruit. If an ordinary person smells it, his or her lifespan will increase by 100 years. If he or she eats it, even an ordinary person without spiritual roots can enter the world of immortals. If a cultivator eats it, his or her lifespan will increase by 1,000 years. Moreover, it can make his or her spiritual qi stronger and purer. Fengjiu continued, not only that if a dying person eats it, They can be saved and their strength will return to its peak. According to the records, it takes 9,000 years to grow, another 900 years to bloom, and another 900 years to bear fruit. The fruit also takes another 900 years to mature. Therefore, this fruit is called the 9 treasures fruit. It is a celestial fruit and not a spiritual fruit. It is very precious. Chapter 46:30. Fengjiu couldn't help but chuckle and pinch her little cheeks. President, you will grow up, don't worry. You will grow into a beautiful lady in the future. You wants to be as beautiful as Mother when she grows up, she said with a smile, her beautiful eyes curved into crescents. Mother, we owe the Pan family a debt of gratitude. So when we left, we said that if there was a chance in the future, please treat young Master Pan's leg so that he can stand again. How? Er's gaze fell on her as he spoke. Fengjiu smiled and said, yes, Mother understands. In a few days, Mother will bring you to visit him again to have a look. Hearing this, how? Smiled and nodded. Only then did he not say anything. Chin, how is your health? Fengjiu asked, looking at her son who didn't speak much. She reached out to touch his head and asked, are you okay? Yes, I'm very healthy. Mother, don't worry. Mu Chen paused for a moment before continuing. It's just that the blood curse on our bodies has not been completely removed, but the symptoms that appeared a while ago have disappeared recently. He hesitated for a moment before asking, Mother, how is Father? They originally thought that their physical condition might be related to their parents' condition. When they saw their mother today, they saw that she was fine, but their father was nowhere to be seen. It seemed that something had happened to their father, but their mother didn't say anything. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed and the smile on her face faded a little. Mother, did something happen to Father? Yuer asked, her eyes overflowing with worry. When Feng Sanyuan and the others saw this, they looked at each other and looked at Fengjiu in unison. A few days ago, they weren't clear, but after asking these two people, they more or less knew what happened to Mose. Now that the 3 children asked, should they tell them? You must not have had a good rest on the way back, right? It's getting late. Go take a hot bath and rest. As for your father's matter, Mother will find a time to tell you. Fengjiu said softly, looking at the 3 children with a smile. When the 3 saw this, they didn't ask any more questions and just nodded in agreement. I'll take you there, Wanrong said and stepped forward to hold Er's hand while saying to Fengjiu, I'll take the 3 children back to the courtyard first. You come over later. Keep them company. Okay, I know, Fengjiu replied. After watching them leave, the smile on her face and a trace of exhaustion, she gently rubbed between her brows. Feng girl, don't plan to tell the children about Mose? Sanyuan asked, looking at her tired face, and couldn't help but sigh. In 2 days. I'll find a time to tell them, Feng Nine said, then stood up and said, that person put him in the guest room of the West Courtyard, right? Yes, in the guest room of the West Courtyard, Feng Xiao said. See, she, know where he came from. It's dark now, and you still want to go? Maybe he's already asleep. Why don't you go tomorrow morning? Feng Xiao suggested. Chapter 46:31. The next morning, Fengjiu got up before the 3 children even got up. After washing up, she went to the guest room in the West Courtyard. When she arrived at the West Courtyard, she saw the masked man sitting in the middle of the courtyard. When he saw her, he gestured at the seat in front of him. Sit. Fengjiu glanced at him and stepped forward. He first cupped his hands and bowed to him. Thank you for saving my children. You want to thank me? He looked at Fengjiu and asked. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. He smiled and sat down at the table. What kind of thank you gift would you like? If it's within my means, I won't refuse. I want your daughter to be my disciple, said the masked man. Fengjiu's expression was normal. He said, I still don't know who you are. If I tell you, you'll agree? His voice was slightly raised. There was a hint of disapproval in it. Fengjiu did not directly answer his question. Instead, he looked at him and said, I don't think I've seen you before. However, I can see that your strength is unfathomable. Moreover, you could take out the 9 treasures immortal fruit. It's obvious that you have an extraordinary background. Since that's the case, why do you want my daughter to be your disciple? Feng paused. He looked at him and continued. In terms of talent, she may be extremely outstanding, but she's not the only one. Therefore, I don't understand why you insist on her being your disciple. The masked man glanced at him and said, What reason do I need to find her pleasing to the eye? Hearing this, Feng frowned slightly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard the masked man's voice. I was the one who saved that little girl's life. If it wasn't for me, she would have died long ago. So, from the moment I saved her, her life almost belonged to me. Now, I want her to be my disciple. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. The masked man spoke slowly, his voice somewhat cold. It's true that you saved you, but I can use other things to repay you. You is my child, not an object. She also has her own opinions and thoughts. If she wants to take you as her master, I won't stop her. If she doesn't want to take you as her master, then no matter what you say, I won't agree. As she spoke, she paused and looked at the other party's cold aura. She smiled and said, You should know who I am. Even if you haven't seen me before, you should have heard of my name. If you want to fight with me, I will accompany you to the end. The masked man narrowed his eyes and seemed a little displeased. He said, I don't want to be your enemy. I just want to take in a disciple. Feng glanced at him and said unhurriedly, The disciple you want to take in is my child. Then what do you want in order for you to agree? He asked in a low voice. I've already said it earlier. As long as you is willing, I won't stop her. However, even if she agrees, you still have to reveal your true appearance. At the same time, tell me your real name and origin. Only then can I let my daughter leave with you. Otherwise? The man glanced at her and said, Otherwise, don't tell me you want to compete with me. Chapter 46:32. Hearing this, the masked man looked at Feng and did not say anything else. He just seemed to be scrutinizing something. After a long while, he said, The little girl can only grow up safely with me. You can't take care of her now. Moreover, your husband, Xinyuan Mose, is also missing. Do you think you'll be safe with her by your side? Speaking of this, the masked man's voice softened a little. He stood up and did not look at Feng slightly changed expression. Instead, he walked slowly in the courtyard with his hands behind his back. Suddenly, he stopped and looked at the sky. He said to Feng The matters of this world are not so simple. Why do you think you can't control life and death when your cultivation has reached such a high level? As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at Feng Seeing her frowning slightly and staring at him, he tugged at the corners of his mouth, revealing a smile that wasn't really a smile. You've grown too fast, and you become a threat to some powerful existences. Before you grow strong enough to shake the world, they will find a way to kill you, and even your children won't be spared. Feng expression was normal, but her heart was not calm. There was a lot of information in his words, and she could not help but think deeply. Including Tian Jizi, who is no longer here, this should be the second person to say such words to her. However, these words were too vague, and she had never touched on them. You're saying that our existence threatens some powerful existence? What kind of existence is this so-called powerful existence that you speak of? Feng looked at him and asked. Her voice paused, and then she said, We've lived in this world for a long time, but we've never met the so-called powerful existence that you speak of. They're not here. Of course they're not here. The masked man looked at her. Those who have ascended cannot come here. If they were here, you wouldn't be alive now. Hearing this, Feng frowned. Her gaze fell on him, and her voice carried a trace of vigilance. She asked again, Then who are you? How do you know these things? Why do I have to be the only one to accept my daughter as your disciple? What's your purpose? The masked man looked at her and suddenly reached out to take off the mask on his face, revealing the face behind the mask. It was a face that had been burned. His original face could no longer be seen. It could even be said that it was very frightening. However, after taking off the mask, the man looked at Feng with a calm and indifferent gaze, as if that face was not his. His next words confirmed this guess. This face is a little ugly, so I wear a mask to prevent it from scaring people, especially the little girl that I fancy. Holding the mask in his hand, He walked slowly to Feng Jiu and sat down across from her. He placed the mask on the table and waved his hand. The courtyard was immediately enveloped by a gust of air, as if it was isolated from the outside world. Feng Jiu's eyes Feng Jiu, to prevent those old fellows from eavesdropping. Chapter 46:33. His voice paused, as if he was sighing softly and blaming himself. When I was in seclusion, my disciple perished during tribulation. Her soul dissipated between heaven and earth, never to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Because she was originally an anomaly, she did not exist between heaven and earth. I originally thought that she would continue to drift between heaven and earth until the last strand of her soul dissipated between heaven and earth. Unexpectedly, because you were an anomaly, and because of her good fortune, she obtained a strand of life and entered the cycle of reincarnation to become your daughter. When I found out about this, I tried to find a suitable body in this lower realm and used that as a means to find her. Hearing this, Feng Jiu was slightly startled. You said that my daughter was your disciple in her previous life? Her face was filled with obvious doubt. How could that be? The man glanced at her and slowly said, She is my disciple, whether you believe it or not. I don't need to lie to you in order to take her away. Feng Jiu looked at him, her gaze landing on his eyes. She saw that there was a slight annoyance in his eyes, as if he was unhappy, but there was no fear or panic in his eyes, only seriousness and serenity. She fell silent, and, after a while, she asked, If you take her away, can you protect her and let her grow up safely? Can you ensure that nothing happens to her again? You don't need to worry about this. I have the ability to protect her. The man slowly said, Even if those so-called almighty people want to take her life, can you protect her? Feng Jiu asked again, looking straight into his eyes. Before she grows up, I'll not let those old fellows know that she is your daughter. If they find out one day, I will do everything I can to protect her. His voice was neither fast nor slow, but it was filled with determination. He looked straight at Feng Jiu, not avoiding her gaze. Seeing this, Feng Jiu said, All right, I agree to let you take her away, but not now. She looked at him and said, She has just returned to my side, and the blood curse on her body has not been completely removed. At least for now, I cannot let you take her away. I can only stay here for half a year. After half a year, I'll have to go back. As for the blood curse on the little girl, I'll bring her back and help her remove it, he said. When she heard that she only had half a year, Feng Jiu pursed her lips. When she heard that he had a way to break the blood curse, she said, I understand. She stood up and paused. She looked at him and asked, Who are you? Not yet. It's best if you don't know. He shook his head and stood up. He put on his mask and said, There's no benefit in saying it. You just need to know that I won't harm your daughter. If you're worried that you won't be able to see her in the future, you can rest assured that you'll have the chance to see her after you ascend. Hearing him talk about ascension, Feng Jiu's eyes flashed and his heart stirred. He said, Since you have a way to bring you up, then bring my son up as well. They are twins and have a good relationship. Chinner will accompany you up there, so she won't be lonely. Hearing this, the man glanced at Feng Jiu with his hands behind his back. You have a good plan. Don't tell me you want to give me your eldest son as well. He said this casually, but who knew that she would laugh? Chapter 46:34. Do you think it's easy to casually bring a person up? He lightly snorted and coldly looked at her. Seeing this, Feng Jiu smiled and said, Aren't you an almighty from above? Other people can't come down, but you can think of a way to come down. It can be seen that you are more powerful than others. Moreover, bringing one is also bringing two is also bringing, so it shouldn't be a problem for you. He didn't speak, only waved his hand, dispelling the enchantment in the air. At the same time, he raised his hand and waved, pushing Feng Jiu out of the courtyard. Feng Jiu slowly came back to her senses, and light flashed in her eyes. Looking towards the courtyard again, she saw that the enchantment had already been set up. Surging airflow filled the air above the enchantment. Gradually, she couldn't see the scenery inside the courtyard. If before she still had doubts, then this person's push actually dispelled the doubts in her heart. being able to push her this kind of strength out of the courtyard like a feather. This wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Thinking of this, she also didn't stay here for long, rather turned around and left. Today, although she didn't ask what almighty he was from above, but she also knew his origin. She also knew that his current body wasn't his real body. As for other things, she still had half a year's time, so she could slowly observe. If this person was worthy to be entrusted to her 3 children, then she would start to arrange things. As for the enemy, as long as she knew what kind of person the enemy was, what kind of existence he was, then she would have a target. In the following 2 days, Feng Jiu accompanied the 3 children to have a good rest. He took them a stroll around the city and again went to Peach Blossom Cove to stay for a day. Until the 3rd day, Wanyan Qianhua and others also rushed back one after another. Along with Guan Shilin, Du Fan, Leng Hua, Leng Shuang, and others waiting, the residents also became more and more lively. This day, after the banquet, Wanyan Qianhua pulled Feng Jiu to a corner and asked, "Who is that person wearing a mask? Why do I feel that person is somewhat strange?" Feng Jiu looked towards that masked man who was helping you to get food and said with a smile, "Didn't I say before? He is the benefactor of our 3 children, and he wants to accept you as his disciple. I also have plans to let you acknowledge him as her master. You're capable enough. Are you afraid that you can't teach 3 children? You're still so young. Are you willing to let her leave with a person who came out of nowhere?" Wanyan Qianhua said disapprovingly. "Besides, this person looks weird to me, and I can't see through his cultivation. Are you relieved? Sister, let's talk about this matter later. Today, let's have a good gathering. I plan to bring the 3 children to Xuanwu Lord's place tomorrow to let Howard meet his parents." When the 3 children were wandering in the mortal world, they still owe some kindness, and I still want to bring them to repay it. Feng Jiu said and sighed lightly. "You also know that I don't know what's going on with Mose now. I also don't know where he is. Until now, I also don't know how to tell the 3 children. Also, I have to make a trip to Tianshan. I reckon that I won't be staying at home for too long." Chapter 4635. Feng Jiu nodded. "I know," she said as she held her hand and walked back to the banquet. The next day, after Feng Jiu informed her family, she brought the 3 children, the masked man, Leng Hua, Leng Shuang, and Du Fan to the palace of the Black Tortoise Monarch. On the spaceship, Hao couldn't help but ask, "Mother, 17 went to the Phoenix Guard training camp. When we go to the mortal world again, should we bring him along?" Ever since they came back and found out that 17 was loyal and devoted to them, their mother arranged for 17 to enter the Phoenix Guard training camp. It had been a few days and they hadn't seen him, so they didn't know what his current situation was. Feng Jiu sat at the bow of the spaceship, drinking wine and chatting with the masked man. After hearing Hao Er's words, she asked with a smile, "Do you want to bring him along?" Hao nodded. "I want to bring him back to have a look. After all, he lived there for so many years, and the people he is familiar with are there. If we go back, let's bring him back." "Okay, then after meeting your parents, we'll bring him to the mortal world together." Feng Jiu said, Mother, you are also as very good friends in the Pan family." You leaned in her embrace and said in a soft and excited voice, "Their sister, Shuer," and she leaned in Feng Jiu's embrace and told her the interesting things between her and the young masters and young ladies of the Pan family. The spaceship flew in the air. Du Fan, Leng Hua, and Leng Shuang were either standing, sitting, or leaning against the side of the spaceship. They listened to Yu's soft and excited voice as she talked about interesting things. Unknowingly, they felt that time flew by quickly. In the Black Tortoise Palace, the Black Tortoise Monarch, who had already received the news from Feng Jiu, was already waiting in the palace. Seeing that his wife hadn't arrived yet, he said to the people beside him, "Go and see why Madam and young master haven't arrived yet. We're here." Madam Black Tortoise led her youngest son in and looked at Monarch Black Tortoise. She said unhappily, "They aren't here yet. Is there a need for you to rush them 3 times? As she spoke, she led her son forward and sat down beside her. Then, she placed her son on her lap. "Madam," Fengjiu sent Hao back today. They finally found the child and personally sent Hao back. As the host and Hao's biological parents, we naturally can't be rude. Monarch Black Tortoise said and reached out to hold her hand. They were the ones who lost the child, so it's normal for them to find it. Besides, Hao has always been thinking about Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mo's in his heart. He has always called them father and mother. People who don't know would think that they are his biological parents. She seemed to be a little resentful. She felt that it was unfair, and when she spoke, she was also angry. Hearing this, Monarch Black Tortoise said, "Why are you saying this? Don't you know that Hao has been wandering outside since he was young? They were the ones who saved him and raised him until he was 5 or 6 years old. It's normal for him to be estranged from us. After all, the child has always been living with them, and they are indeed good to Hao." Chapter 46:36. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. It's useless to talk too much. Monarch Xuanwu gestured for her to stop complaining. After a while, a guard came in and reported, "Monarch, the spaceship has landed outside the hall." Monarch Xuanwu hurriedly stood up and said to his wife, "They're here. Let's go and welcome them." Seeing this, Madame Xuanwu stood up with her son in her arms. The smile on her face was faint, and she didn't say anything. She quietly followed him out. The spaceship stopped, and Fengjiu and the others alighted. Yu, who had come to a new place, was particularly excited, especially after knowing that this was the palace where her elder brother's biological parents lived. She was pleasantly surprised. Elder brother, this place is so big and beautiful." Hao revealed a faint smile and looked at her. "Elder brother will bring you around in a while." "Okay." The two little fellows responded and saw a group of people walking in. The leader was a couple carrying a child. The child looked younger than them by a few months. "Ghost Doctor, you're finally here." Monarch Xuanwu walked towards Fengjiu and bowed to her. His smiling gaze landed on Hao. His eyes were filled with gratification and emotion. "Hao, it's good that you're back safely. We can rest assured. Hao, come over and let mother take a look." Madame Xuanwu put her son down and opened her arms. Hao took a step forward and bowed respectfully to them. This child greets father and mother. After bowing, he walked forward and stood in front of his biological mother. "Son, you must have suffered a lot outside. Mother told you not to go out and to stay at home, but you didn't listen and insisted on going out. Look, you suffered so much outside. Fortunately, you came back safely. Otherwise..." Madame Black Tortoise held his hand and kept talking. When Monarch Black Tortoise heard this, he felt a little awkward and hurriedly interrupted her. All right. Hao is back. Why are you still talking about this?" The Black Tortoise Monarch scolded and then said to Fengjiu apologetically, "Ghost Doctor, please don't take offense. She doesn't mean anything else. She's just worried about her son." Fengjiu smiled and did not take this matter to heart. He only said, "It's fine. This time, I sent Hao back and brought 2 little ones. I'm afraid I'll have to disturb Monarch Black Tortoise here for a few days." Ha. Ghost Doctor, what are you saying? You're more than welcome to stay here for a while. Moreover, the children are of similar age and can play together. All right, you haven't met my youngest son yet, right? Lord Black Tortoise smiled as he looked at his youngest son beside him. His eyes were filled with love. Fengjiu looked at that child. He seemed to be about the same age as Yu and the others. However, if one were to look carefully, he reckoned that he would be a few months younger. His appearance was also very outstanding. His appearance was more like Madame Xuanwu. At this time, the little boy held Madame Xuanwu's hand with one hand and placed the other in his mouth. A pair of curious eyes stared at Mu Chun and Mu Yu, as if wondering why they looked exactly the same. Fengjiu smiled and said, Du Fan came over last time. I also heard him mention that the little master is very intelligent. Today, his appearance is also very outstanding. Chapter 46:37. The group entered the main hall and chatted for a while. After drinking 2 cups of tea, the Black Tortoise Sovereign said, I've already asked someone to prepare a courtyard for you to rest in. You can stay here for a few more days so that the children can get together and have some fun. As the Black Tortoise Sovereign spoke, He looked at Fengjiu and smiled. Ghost Doctor, it's rare for you to come here. I happen to have something to discuss with you. Why don't you come with me to the study? Seeing this, Fengjiu said, Sure. Madam, take the children around and let them have some fun. We haven't been so lively here for a long time, he said to his wife. I will, Madam Xuanwu replied. She held her youngest son's hand and said to Hao, Mu Chun, and Mu Yu, let's go to the garden for a walk. We'll go back and rest when we're tired. I've already instructed the kitchen to make some things that the children like to eat. I'll have them send it to the garden later. Go. Fengjiu gestured for the children to follow her. Dufan also stood up with a smile. I came here once last time, but I didn't take a closer look at the strange flowers and herbs in the garden. This time, I must take a good look. I'll take you there. This way, please. Madame Xuanwu said with a smile. She made a gesture of invitation and led them out. After they left, the Black Tortoise Sovereign also stood up and made a gesture of invitation to Fengjiu. Ghost Doctor, please. Fengjiu nodded and followed him to the study. This time, the main reason she came back was to send Hao back to meet them. Moreover, if they agreed, she also wanted to entrust Hao to the masked man and take him away. When they went up, she would find an immortal sect or an expert for Hao to cultivate. However, she did not know if they would agree. She also did not know if this idea of hers was too selfish. Therefore, she wanted to take advantage of the few days she stayed here to observe the Black Tortoise Sovereign and his wife's attitude towards Hao. Would they be willing to let him leave? On the other side, Madame Xuanwu brought everyone to the garden and introduced them. The flowers in this garden are all strange flowers and herbs collected from all over the world. They're not only for ornamental purposes, but most of them can also be used as medicinal herbs. Medicinal herbs? Yu has never seen such a beautiful flower or medicinal herb before. Yu's soft voice carried surprise, and her little face overflowed with joy as she said, But now Yu is learning medicinal herbs. Hereafter I will know many medicinal herbs, and will also know what these medicinal herbs flowers can be used for. Yu is really amazing. In the future, you will definitely be like Mother, a very amazing alchemist and pharmacist. How? Looked at her and said, a gentle smile appearing on his cold little face. Hearing this, Madame Black Tortoise glanced at him. Seeing the gentle expression on his face and hearing him call her mother, the smile on her face couldn't help but fade. In the end, to him, his mother would always be that Fengjiu, and she, his biological mother, could only be called a distant mother by him. The little boy who was being held by Black Tortoise Madam looked at his elder brother, then looked at Yu. He blinked his eyes, and no one knew what he was thinking, but he didn't speak. Chapter 4638. The little boy, who was being held by Madame Xuanwu, saw his brother being led away by a lady who was about the same age as him. She was clearly his brother, but she called him Big Brother. For a moment, he couldn't help but bite his fingers, his little face full of grievance. Seeing that they were far away and no one asked him to go with them, he shook off his mother's hand and trotted forward to chase after them. Madame Xuanwu was startled and hurriedly said, Run slower, don't fall. How? Heard the sound behind him and looked back. Seeing that it was his younger brother, he slowed down to wait for him. Let go of Hao and Mu Chin's hands and trotted forward to squat at the side to look at the flowers. The little boy trotted to Hao's side and reached out to hug his arm. His pair of eyes stared at Mu Chun and Mu Yu as if to tell them that this was his older brother. Mu Chun acted like a little adult and ignored him. Yu was looking at the flowers and didn't look at him. Hao saw his younger brother hugging his arm and didn't say anything. Seeing that Yu kept looking at the flowers, he asked, Yu, which flower do you want? Big Brother will pick it for you. Yu turned her head and looked at him with a beaming smile, then said in a crisp voice, Big Brother, plucked flowers will die very quickly and will not be beautiful. Like this, if we let them grow, we can always see them. Yu is a good child. Yu will not pluck flowers. Hearing this, Hao's expression softened and said, Then let's go sit in the pavilion for a while. Let the servants send some food over. Okay, she responded and came to his side. Seeing the little boy hugging her big brother's arm tightly and staring at her with a pair of small tiger-like eyes. She couldn't help but blink her beautiful big eyes and said with a smile, "Are you Big Brother's younger brother? What's your name?" "I'm Xinyuan Muyue. You have to call me sister, Yuer." "Go away." The little boy reached out and pushed Yuer. Caught off guard, Yu was pushed back a few steps. She staggered and fell to the ground. "What are you doing?" Hao Er's face turned cold, and he coldly glanced at his younger brother beside him. Then, he broke free from his brother's grip on his arm and quickly went forward to help Yuer up. At the same time, he helped her clean the dust on her skirt. "Yuer, are you all right?" "I'm fine. It's just that my skirt is dirty." Yuer looked at her pink and tender little skirt, which was dirted because she had fallen and sat on the ground, and the smile on her little face also disappeared. Mu Chun had always been a man of action. He was the kind of person who would not speak if he could, and went straight to the point. Seeing that the little boy was bullying his little sister, he immediately took a step forward and pushed him with all his might, causing him to fall to the ground. Wow, the little boy was used to being spoiled. At this time, after being yelled at by Hao and pushed by Mu Chun, he fell to the ground and immediately sat on the ground, crying loudly. On the other side, Madame Black Tortoise, who was chatting with Du Fan and the others, heard her son crying. Her expression changed, and she quickly walked over. Seeing her youngest son sitting on the ground and crying sadly, she couldn't help but feel sorry for him. She hurriedly went forward and picked him up. "What's wrong? Why are you sitting on the ground and crying?" "Sob, sob, sob. Big Brother scolded me. They bullied me. Sob, sob, sob." The little boy cried sadly and complained. Chapter 46:39. She patted the mud and sand off her youngest son's clothes and coaxed him softly. She didn't look at Hao and the others. After she picked up her youngest son, she turned to Du Fan and the others and said, "I'm really sorry. I have to leave first. You guys go walk around first. I'll take the child back to change his clothes first. Look at how dirty his clothes are from the fall." Seeing this, Du Fan smiled warmly and said, "Madam, go ahead and do your work first. We'll walk around casually." Seeing that she left with her youngest son without saying anything to Hao Du Fan couldn't help but turn back and look at Hao Mu Chun, and Mu Yu. "Yuer, do you want to change your dress?" Du Fan asked warmly, his gaze falling on the little one. "No need. Big Brother helped me clean it. I still want to play around. If I change it later, it'll get dirty again." Yuer said crisply and looked at her big brother, who was looking down, and her big brother, who was pursing his lips and not speaking. After thinking for a while, Yuer explained, "Uncle Du Fan, we didn't bully Big Brother's little brother. He pushed me first, so Big Brother pushed him. We didn't hit him." There was a trace of anxiety in her soft voice, as if she was afraid that they wouldn't believe her. Hearing this, the masked man standing at the side smiled slightly. They were all immortal cultivators. Even if these children were on the other side of the flower bush, they had all noticed the movement and situation on this side. Naturally, they knew what was going on. Not to mention how Mu Chun and Mu Yu looked young, but they had experienced a lot of danger and difficulties. They had also wandered alone outside. The little boy raised in this palace couldn't be compared to them. If they really fought, not to mention Mu Chun, even Yu could defeat the little boy with one hand. "We know, don't worry. It's okay. Madame Xuanwu won't blame you." Du Fan comforted them. In fact, all of them understood that although Madame Black Tortoise did not say anything, there was definitely a trace of anger in her heart. Otherwise, she would not have directly carried the little boy and left without saying a word to Hao When they thought of this, Du Fan, Lung Hua, and Lung Shuang looked at each other and simultaneously looked towards Hao who had lowered his eyes. They also felt bad when they saw him like this. Thus, Lung Hua walked forward and rubbed Hao head. He said, "Hao you're familiar with this place. Why don't you show us around?" Hearing this, Hao looked up at them and nodded. "Okay." After walking around the palace, they returned to the courtyard to rest. After everyone had some food in the courtyard, Hao did not stay with Mu Chun and Mu Yu because he had his own courtyard here. Instead, he returned to his own courtyard. Lung Shuang helped Mu Yu take a bath and change her clothes before walking out. She saw that her mother had not returned yet, but other than her eldest brother, the others were sitting in the courtyard and drinking tea. Thus, she jogged forward to the table. Just as she was about to climb up and sit down, the person beside her picked her up and placed her firmly on the stool. She tilted her head to look and revealed a sweet smile. "Thank you, uncle." The masked man glanced at her. "It's Master. Hee hee." Chapter 4640. Hearing this, Du Fan was a little surprised by Yu'er's sharpness, but thinking that her master's children had always been intelligent, she just smiled and warmly said, "No, Yu'er, don't think too much. Your big brother won't be angry with you." Hearing these words, Yu'er blinked her eyes, but didn't say anything more. She only replied with an sound, then lying on the table, her small chin rested on the back of her hand, waiting for her mother to return. When Fengjiu came back, she saw that everyone was still sitting around the table in the courtyard. She asked, "Have you all eaten? Why didn't you rest first?" "We ate some snacks and the like, but we haven't eaten dinner yet. We were planning to wait for Master to come back," Leng Hua said. Seeing this, Fengjiu said to Leng Hua, "Let the servants serve the food. Just put it in this courtyard and eat. Go inside and bring out 2 tables to put together." While speaking, she glanced around and saw that everyone was here except for Hauer. She asked, "Where is Hauer? Is he going to Madame Xuanwu's place for dinner?" "Mother, when we were walking in the garden earlier, I pushed big brother's younger brother down." Muchin stood up and said. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised an eyebrow and squatted down to look at him. She asked softly, "Then tell Mother, why did you push him down?" Mother, it was big brother's younger brother who pushed you first, so big brother pushed him." You hurriedly got down from the stool and stood beside her brother, worried that her mother would blame her brother. Fengjiu rubbed the 2 little guys' heads and smiled. "It's right for a brother to protect his little sister. However, we are guests at someone's house, so we can't go overboard. If it's a small matter, just bear with it a little and don't argue with him. If you argue with him over everything, in the end, you'll only cause trouble for yourself." Yes, we understand." The 2 little guys agreed in unison, firmly remembering their mother's teachings. "That little boy is your big brother's biological younger brother. He's younger than you and not as sensible as you. You push him down. Tell me, who should your big brother help? Are you making things difficult for him?" Fengjiu said softly, looking into the eyes of the 2 children. The 2 little guys couldn't help but look at each other. Muchin asked, "Mother, what should we do?" Fengjiu smiled and said, "Didn't you bring gifts for your elder brother's younger brother? Nyangqin will accompany you to give him a gift and apologize to him." "But Mother just said that big brother protecting little sister is something he ought to do, so why should we go and apologize?" You were asked in puzzlement. Fengjiu smiled and pinched her tender little face, saying, "We're going to apologize not because we're saying that you're wrong, but because we're being polite. Moreover, this is a very small matter, isn't it?" The 2 of them thought about it and finally agreed, "All right then, we will listen to Mother." Fengjiu stood up and said to the people in the courtyard, "You all eat first. Don't wait for us. I'll take them over. Since you said it's a small matter, why let them make this trip? Moreover, they should be the ones apologizing." The masked man said calmly. Fengjiu looked at him, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and said with a smile, "I'm just teaching the children how to deal with people. If they can solve things with their brains, why should they use their hands?" Chapter 4641. Fengjiu brought them along and asked the servants where Hao-er's courtyard was. She planned to go and see him first. On the way, she looked at the 2 children beside her and asked softly with a smile, "Mother is bringing you to apologize. Will you be unhappy?" "No." The 2 shook their heads and said seriously, "Mother is definitely doing this for our own good." Fengjiu smiled and looked at the 2 children with doting eyes. She said softly, "You still have a lot to learn. In the future, I may not be able to stay by your side and teach you, so you have to rely on yourself for many things. You have to remember that no matter how outstanding your talent is, no matter how strong your strength is, you can't let yourself become an arrogant person. Before you grow up, it's easy to be in the limelight and be killed by others. You have to learn to protect yourself and know how to restrain your edge. When you encounter something, don't attack without saying a word. Think about the consequences of everything. Use your brain endure when you can, and it's not too late to attack when you can't. The two children looked up at her and finally nodded seriously. Yes, yes, we know. Mu-chun thought in his heart that next time he would listen to his mother. If others provoked him, he would treat them as invisible. If he really couldn't bear it, he would send them flying with a kick. Clean and tidy. You were thought that since her mother said to use her brain more, then when she didn't make a move, she would get some medicine to deal with the people she hated. She would make them suffer, and perhaps they wouldn't know it was her who did it. Thinking of this, the two children showed an inexplicable smile tacitly. When they came to Hao Er's courtyard, they heard the servants say that the eldest young master was called by Madame Xuanwu. So, they went to the main courtyard. At this time, in the main courtyard, the little boy with red eyes was lying in his mother's arms, and Monarch Xuanwu was sitting beside him. When he saw Hao come in, he said, Hao is here. Sit down. Our family hasn't eaten together for a long time. Let's have a good meal today. Hao answered and sat down at the table. After thinking for a while, he said, Mother, Chirk didn't mean to push my younger brother. He was just protecting you, Hearing this, Madame Xuanwu looked at him indifferently. Hao, you're our child and Bo Er's brother. Why don't you protect your brother, but the two of them? Speaking up for them? Do you know whose child you are? Do you know who your real family is? Hao pursed his lips, lowered his gaze, and didn't say anything. All right. What's the point of saying all this? It's not easy for the child to come back. Can't you let him have a good meal with us? What's the point of being so calculative? Monarch Black Tortoise said as he looked at his wife disapprovingly. She comforted her eldest son. How, your mother is like that. Don't take her words to heart. Chapter 46-42. Hearing this, the Black Tortoise Monarch could not help but have a headache. How can this be the same? You also know that if the ghost doctor had not saved our son back then, he would be long gone now. The child is still young. Tell me, as a mother, how can you say such things? If I had known that he had returned and did not treat us as his parents in his heart, I would have preferred that he had died outside back then. Lady Black Tortoise knew that she had misspoken and could not help but fall silent. She looked at Hao with a guilty conscience. When she saw that his face had turned pale, she faintly regretted it. Impulse was the devil. No matter what, he was still the son she had carried for 10 months. She should not have treated him like this. Just as she was about to say something, she heard Fengjiu's cold voice. In that case, Lady Black Tortoise, just pretend that you don't have a son like him. Fengjiu brought Mu-chun and Mu-yu in. The two little guys had obviously heard the previous words, and their little faces were full of anger at this moment. Big brother. Big brother. The two trotted forward and came to Hao Er's side. One of them held his hand and then glared at Lady Black Tortoise like little beasts. Ghost Doctor, it's a misunderstanding. This is all a misunderstanding. My wife did not mean it. Her words were said in an impulse. You can't take it seriously. When the Black Tortoise Monarch saw Fengjiu arrive, he quickly stood up to smooth things over. However, when he saw her cold expression, he could not help but feel a little embarrassed. Fengjiu ignored him and slowly walked forward to Hao Er's side. He reached out and rubbed his head. He said softly, It's okay. Hao Er still has us. Hearing these gentle words and feeling the warmth from the palm on his head, Hao Er's heart ached. He felt wronged and sad. He held back his tears and raised his head to look at the person beside him. With a helpless voice, he called out, Mother. Fengjiu patted his shoulder and turned to look coldly at Madame Xuanwu. Hao was raised by me. In my heart, he is like my own child. He has always been my treasure. I can't bear to let him suffer any grievances. I didn't expect that you would make him suffer. Since Madame doesn't want him, I will take him away. In the future, Madame, don't say that he is your son. In my opinion, you are not worthy of being his mother. Madame Xuanwu's face turned green and white at Fengjiu's words. She wanted to speak several times, but she wasn't someone like Fengjiu. She didn't even have the courage to speak when she was stared at coldly. Ghost Doctor, please calm down, Ghost Doctor. Monarch Black Tortoise said, My wife didn't mean it that way. Fengjiu looked at him and said, Monarch Black Tortoise, since we were talking about this today, let's make this matter clear. Back then, when I sent Howard back to you, how did you and your wife promise me that you would love him and not let him suffer any grievances? In the end, since you can't love him, tolerate him, and love him like a parent should, I will take him away today. You don't have to say anything more. In the future, when he grows up, if he is willing to come back to see you, he can come back. I will not bring him back to be bullied and wronged here. Chapter 46-43. Didn't you just say that you wished he had died outside back then? Why? Now you're saying that he's your son? Fengjiu glanced at her mockingly and did not look at her green and red face. He continued, as for why you should take him away? Haven't you heard of the saying, raising kindness is not as great as giving birth to kindness? Putting aside the fact that he was raised by me, I saved him from the beast back then and gave him a new life. Just based on this, I have the right to take him away. She glanced at the black tortoise monarch and said coldly, if you, as his biological parents, truly love him, I'm naturally willing for him to have another pair of loving parents. However, since you can't truly love him, then don't use your status as his biological parents to restrain him. Let him suffer. She was protective, especially towards her own children. If the black tortoise monarch and his wife truly loved Howard, even if she could not bear to part with the son she raised, she would still send him back to his biological parents' side and let them live together and get along well. However, she would never allow the child she regarded as a treasure in her hands to be bullied and wronged by his biological parents. When the black tortoise monarch and his wife heard her words, their faces alternated between green and white. For a long time, they could not find a word to refute. In fact, they themselves knew that perhaps they did not lack Howard's food and daily necessities. However, in terms of love, perhaps when they first brought him back, they would have been more attentive and wanted to give him all the good things. They also wanted to do their best to love and pamper him. However, Howard was cold by nature. No matter how well they treated him, it seemed that they could not enter his heart. Later on, when they had their youngest son, they placed more of their attention and love on him. Gradually, it seemed that they drifted further and further away and became more and more distant. At this moment, Fengjiu's words were sharp and direct. They pierced through the layer of membrane that they had all along, making them embarrassed and guilty at the same time. Because those words were all true. Howard, come with mother. Fengjiu did not look at them and spoke to Howard instead. Howard did not speak. He stood up quietly and walked out beside Fengjiu. Howard, Monarch Black Tortoise called out with guilt in his eyes. Howard's footsteps only paused for a moment. He didn't even turn his head as he silently followed Fengjiu and left. He didn't even look at them again. Mu Chun and Mu Yu followed closely behind, holding their big brother's hand. In the past, they didn't know that their big brother's biological parents didn't treat him well. Now that they knew, they were very angry and secretly told themselves that they must treat their big brother better in the future. Seeing them leave, Madame Black Tortoise's face turned pale. She sat at the table without saying a word. It was unknown if she regretted it or felt guilty. The Black Tortoise Monarch sighed softly. He glanced at his wife and said, Look, are you happy now that things have turned out like this? He shook his head and was no longer in the mood to eat. He put his hands behind his back and walked out. The little boy in Madame Black Tortoise's arms was still in a daze. He didn't know what had happened. He only knew that his brother seemed to have left again and might not return in the future. Chapter 46-44. Hearing this, Madame Xuanwu's face turned pale. She didn't say anything and just hugged her son tightly. She closed her eyes with some guilt. On the other side, after Fengjiu returned to the small courtyard, he didn't stay here for long. Instead, he said to them, Let's go. After speaking, he turned and walked outside. Everyone in the courtyard was startled. They looked at each other and quickly followed. They followed Fengjiu out of the palace. After arriving outside, Fengjiu took out the spaceship. At this time, Monarch Xuanwu hurried over. Ghost Doctor, wait. Monarch Xuanwu rushed over. Seeing that she was preparing to leave with the people, he couldn't help but say, Ghost Doctor, you just arrived. Why are you leaving? After speaking, he turned to Howard, who was beside Fengjiu, and said, Howard, persuade your mother. Moreover, you just returned home. Wai Hao looked at him and then past him. His gaze landed on the people who were carrying the children. He said word by word with a cold voice, "I won't come again in the future. Just treat it as if I died back then. I won't have a father and mother anymore. I only have a father and mother. I won't have any relationship with you." After speaking, he turned and boarded the spaceship, no longer looking at them. Seeing Hao, who had been silent all the way saying these words, Feng Jiu glanced at Monarch Xuanwu and Madame Xuanwu behind him and said goodbye. She turned and also boarded the spaceship with the two little ones. Du Fan and others boarded the spaceship one after another. After the spaceship took off and left, Du Fan saw that Hao had returned to the cabin to rest. Only then did he go forward and ask, "Master, what happened?" At this time, Yue was still panting with anger. Hearing Du Fan's words, she said, "They bullied Big Brother." Feng Jiu rubbed his daughter's head and said slowly, "When I took the two little guys to their courtyard, I heard Madame Xuanwu scolding Hao. Those maidservants who were about to go in to report had their acupoints sealed by me. We listened outside for a while. When we saw them, we went overboard. In the end, they even said that they would rather Hao die outside and not come back." A trace of coldness flashed through her eyes, and her voice also became colder. After hearing this, I couldn't help but bring the two children in to reason with them. Since they didn't care about Hao, I told them that Hao would be mine in the future, and I wouldn't bring him back to see them. Hearing this, Du Fan sighed softly. I didn't expect Madame Xuanwu to be so overbearing. But this is good too. At least we don't have to let Hao come back in the future. As early as the last time, when Master asked him to come over to check how Hao had been living here for the past few years, he knew that if Master came personally, he would definitely fall out with them. Sure enough, it was. It's not early today. Pay attention below. When we see a town, we'll go down and rest for the night. Moreover, the children haven't eaten yet. We have to make some food for them. Feng Jiu instructed. Master, don't worry. I will pay attention. Du Fan said. Seeing that she walked into the cabin, he walked to the side and sat down. He released his divine sense and paid attention to whether there were towns below where the spaceship flew past. Chapter 46-45. Hao, Mother will come in to talk with you. Feng Jiu said outside the door. Hearing the voice coming from outside, Hao got up and went forward to open the door. Mother. He threw himself into his mother's bosom, his voice carrying a trace of choking. Feng Jiu hugged him, lightly patted his back, and softly said, It's okay. Mother will accompany you. She led him to the bedside and sat down, softly saying, Hao, you must know, in this world, there is no one who will always accompany you. On the road of growth, you will encounter many things. You need to learn to face them by yourself and adapt. Feng Jiu accompanied Hao in the cabin while enlightening him. And outside, after Du Fan saw a town below, he came to the cabin and called, Master, there is a town below. Feng Jiu led Hao out and said, Then let's go down and rest. After saying this, she controlled the airship to fly down. After reaching the bottom, she put away the airship, and the group of people went to the town. Seeing the town was bustling with noise and bustling, children playing on the street, and lanterns hanging in front of shops on both sides of the street, bright red formed a beautiful scenery. Feng Jiu said to Du Fan, You go and find an inn first. I will take the children a stroll around the town. Finished speaking, she looked at that masked man and said, You also go and rest first. You don't need to follow us around. The masked man glanced at you, nodded his head, and faintly replied, and finished speaking. He turned around and went to find an inn first. Then, Master, don't be too late. I will go and find an inn first. In a while I will use my communication jade to inform you. After saying this, Du Fan saluted and left with that masked man, leaving behind Lung Hua and Lung Shuang to follow beside Feng Jiu and others. Let's go. Mother will show you around. If you want to eat something, just tell Mother and Mother will buy it for you. Feng Jiu said with a smile as she led them forward. Lung Hua and Lung Shuang looked at each other and smiled. They quietly followed behind them to help look after the three children. Compared to the food in the restaurant, the three children preferred the street snacks. Feng Jiu took them to try the dishes one by one, and brought them to buy some small toys. Along the way, Hao Er's mood gradually improved. "Are you tired? Do you want to go back and rest?" Feng Jiu asked, looking at the three excited children. Mother, I heard the people over there say that they are going to the river to release wishing lanterns. Mother, let's also go." Yu pulled her hand and lightly swayed it, looking at her with a spoiled appearance. Seeing this, Feng Jiu smiled and replied helplessly, Okay. Mother will accompany you. Let's go. Let's go and buy wishing lanterns first." They walked to the front of the small stall, and after buying several wishing lanterns, they followed the person holding the wishing lanterns until they arrived at the riverbank where many wishing lanterns were floating. In the river, on the water surface, those wishing lanterns were like lotus flowers in full bloom, emitting soft light. They floated on the water surface and floated along with the slowly flowing water, which was very beautiful. The three children took the wishing lanterns to the riverbank, and after silently making a wish in their heart, they put the wishing lanterns into the river and watched it slowly float. Chapter 46:46. Okay, let's go back and rest. Feng Jiu bent down and picked her up. She smiled and looked at Hao Er and Mu Chun, who were walking over. "Let's go to the inn to rest." The two children agreed and followed her to the inn. At noon the next day, the group of them left on the flying ship. They first returned to the Feng ancestral home and brought 17 to the Pan family's mortal world. 1 month later, the three children came to the mortal world again. However, the difference was that last time they were stranded here and couldn't go back. This time, their mother and other people accompanied them. Feng Jiu also had the intention of taking them on a scenic tour. She took Hao Er to relax and let Mu Chun and Mu Yu have some fun. Along the way, she also took this opportunity to teach them some things. Yu liked medicine, so she taught her. Although she was young, she learned things very quickly. In less than a month, she already knew how to make some simple medicine by herself. In terms of cultivation, she also taught Hao Er and Mu Chun. The two often learned from each other, and Mu Chun's improvement was also very fast. On the other hand, Hao became less and less talkative. Although he tried his best to appear normal, she knew that his biological mother's words were like a sharp knife that cut through his young heart, leaving a mark. It wasn't so easy to erase it. Since they had arrived at the mortal realm, they did not use a flying ship. They would only fly on their flying swords occasionally and rest from time to time. Even though they were walking leisurely, they still arrived at the imperial city in the evening. "Mother, we're here," Yu said excitedly. "I can go see Brother Fu Qing and Sister Shui." Mu Chun also showed a rare smile. Although he didn't say anything, he was still very happy to be able to see the little fellow of the past. "Mother, the Pan family's residence is in front," Hao Er pointed and said. As they entered the city, the stunned and surprised gazes of the people in the city followed them closely. After all, the aura of immortal cultivators was incomparable to that of mortals. In addition, they were all very outstanding. When they walked in, they naturally attracted the attention and curiosity of the people. "Hey, look, aren't those twins the ones who lived in the Pan family?" Someone recognized Mu Chun and Mu Yu. After all, these two children's exquisite and identical faces were hard to forget. That's a celestial child. The fairy child had returned. Look at the people around them. All of them are so good-looking. They must be immortals. Immortals have come to our imperial city. Immortals have come to our imperial city. As the surprise cheers of one of the citizens spread out, those voices spread out one after another. They were also densely surrounded, but no one blocked the path ahead. As they walked forward, the surrounding citizens naturally opened up a path for them. There were even people who ran to the Pan family to inform them of the good news. Pan Ning was sitting in the courtyard, drinking tea and reading a book. His son, Fu Qing, was practicing martial arts in the courtyard. Suddenly, he saw the housekeeper rush in with a surprised expression. He put down his teacup and asked, "What's wrong?" Chapter 46:47. Mu Chun and little sister Yu are back. Fu Qing's eyes lit up when he heard that. He immediately ran out and shouted, "That's great! That's great! Mu Chun and little sister Yu are back." Pan Ning was also startled. He quickly stood up and asked anxiously, "You said they're back? Did someone accompany them back?" "Yes, someone accompanied them back. They should be at the gates soon." The butler smiled. "Have you informed the old master and the others?" Pan Ning asked as he walked out quickly. The butler followed behind and said, "Yes, old master and the rest are already in the front yard." "Then what are you waiting for? Quickly open the door. We'll go out and welcome them," Pan Ning said, and quickly walked forward. When Pan Ning arrived at the front yard, his brother, sister-in-law, old master, a few children, and his wife were already waiting there. He quickly walked forward and said, "Grandfather, I heard that Hauer and the rest are back. Not long ago, that person who claimed to be their uncle left. Now, I heard that the children are back. They should have returned to their parents' side." Old master said, "Let's go out and welcome them. Our Pan family is greatly indebted to them." Thus, the group followed old master and waited in front of the Pan family's gate. From afar, they saw a group of people surrounded by the city's citizens slowly walking over. When they saw the group of people, even they couldn't help but be shocked and surprised. It was because the group of people walking over, regardless of whether they were men or women, were good-looking. Moreover, they were the kind of people who were stunning. What made them feel the most awestruck was their aura. The kind of elegant, immortal aura, as well as the noble aura on them, made people involuntarily feel awe and respect, not daring to be presumptuous. Big brother Fu Qing, big brother Bowen, big sister Shui, we're back. Yuer, who saw them from afar, and hurriedly waved her little hand and shouted as she ran forward. Little sister Yuer. Fu Qing waved his hand with a face full of excitement. Bowen and Shui, who were standing beside Pan Hong, saw them and smiled happily. Their eyes lit up as they looked at their little friend whom they hadn't seen in a long time. Big brother Fu Qing, look, we're back. We even brought my mother back. Yuer said with a beaming smile. Turning her head to look at the place where her mother was, she said with a beaming smile, "Big brother Fu Qing, do you think my mother is beautiful? The one in red is my mother." Bo Qing looked at the extremely beautiful woman in red and couldn't help but widen his eyes and ask, "Little sister Yuer, is your mother also an immortal? Does your mother know how to fly? Let me tell you something. A few months ago, a man with a tiger's waist and a bear's back came to find you. He said he was your uncle. He can fly. I saw him fly away. That is my uncle, but this time he didn't come with us," Yuer said while grinning. At this moment, old Master Pan stepped forward and cupped his hands in greeting. "Greetings, esteemed guests. Please come in, please come in." He gestured for them to enter the residence first. "Please come in." Pan Hong and Pan Ning also bowed and gestured for them to enter. Feng Jiu glanced at them, smiled slightly, and nodded before following them inside. Chapter 46-48. Old Man Pan and the others welcomed Feng Jiu into the hall. They didn't dare to sit at the front, so they invited Feng Jiu to sit at the front while they sat on the left and right. Compared to the Pan family's cautious and nervous adults, the Pan family's children, especially Bo Qing, were very excited. From time to time, he would gather around Mu Chun and Mu Yu and excitedly tell them that he had already started learning martial arts and was learning very well. Feng Jiu glanced at the children and smiled. Then, she looked at the Pan family's old master and said, "My name is Feng Jiu, and I am the mother of these 3 children. Some time ago, something happened, and the children were stranded in the mortal world. I only found them not long ago. When I learned that they were being taken care of by you here, I specially came to thank you." We don't dare. Old Man Pan quickly said, "Our Pan family is indebted to the young masters and young ladies. We don't dare to say thank you again." Feng Jiu smiled and didn't say anything else. She just glanced at Pan Ning and looked at Pan Hong. Then her eyes stopped at his legs. "Hauer told me that you have helped him a lot. Back then, when the first young master was ambushed, although he saved his life with a pill, he couldn't heal his legs. This time, I came to take a look at the first young master's legs." "Thank you, madam." Old Man Pan stood up and bowed emotionally. They chatted in the hall for a while, but the city outside was in an uproar. Even the emperor, who was in the palace, had heard the secret guard report that the immortal had come to the Pan family. He, who was in the middle of a meeting with his officials, immediately dismissed them. Among them was Pan Ning's father. "Minister Pan, please wait." The emperor shouted and stood up. Pan Ning's father was startled and hurriedly turned back. He bowed with both hands and asked, "Your Majesty, do you have any other orders?" He was wondering why the emperor said to discuss it another day in the middle of the meeting. But the emperor's intentions were unpredictable, and he didn't think too much about it. He thought that it was late and that it would be better to go home early for dinner. "Ha, Minister Pan. Wait a moment. I'll go with you after changing into casual clothes," he said with a smile, looking at him with eyes full of smiles. He didn't even give him time to respond. After giving him some instructions, he hurried back to the palace to change his clothes. Father Pan was in a daze as he stood there in a daze. He felt strange in his heart. Why did His Majesty want to go to their home again? What did he want to do this time? Could it be that something happened at home? For a moment, he felt a little uneasy as he waited. Once he was anxious and uneasy, he felt that time was passing too slowly. When he finally saw His Majesty in casual clothes with a few guards behind him, he hurried forward and asked, "Why does Your Majesty want to go to this old subject's house? Is there something wrong?" Let's go. You'll know when you get there." The emperor didn't say much. He just smiled and strode out. Helpless, Father Pan could only quickly catch up. At this time, the Pan family was hurriedly preparing for the banquet. It was rare for the children to see each other, so they all went to the martial arts field to play. Feng Jiao took advantage of this time to examine Pan Hong's legs. "It's not a big problem. We'll start the treatment tomorrow, and he'll be able to stand in half a month," Feng Jiao said and smiled as he looked at their surprised and shocked expressions. Chapter 46-49. "Yes, he will be able to stand in half a month." Feng Jiao nodded. "Thank you, madam. Thank you." The old master thanked her profusely. When Pan Hong heard that he would be able to stand in half a month, he could not hide his excitement. When the first madam heard this, she could not help but wipe away her tears and bow to Feng Jiao gratefully. "Thank you, madam. Madam, please have a meal in the front yard." Pan Ning made an inviting gesture and said, "My father is in the palace and has not returned yet. When he returns, he will pay his respects to madam." "No problem," Feng Jiao said, indicating that there was no need to trouble him. Then, he walked towards the front yard accompanied by Pan Ning. The moment Pan Ning's father stepped out of the palace, the coachman came forward to congratulate him, saying that an immortal had come to the Pan family. Someone had also come to the Pan family and asked him to quickly return home. While he was pleasantly surprised, he also understood why the emperor wanted to accompany him to the Pan family. He turned around and saw that the emperor had already boarded a low-key but luxurious carriage. Only then did he quickly enter the carriage and ask the coachman to quickly return home. As expected, along the way, the commoners who recognized the Pan family's carriage came forward to congratulate them, saying that their family had a great fortune and that an immortal had come to visit. On the way back, he saw that there were many people gathered in front of the door. He asked people to disperse the crowd and personally welcomed the emperor, who was dressed in casual clothes. After entering the house, he asked people to close the door. "Your Majesty, please come in." Although Pan Ning's father wanted to quickly go in and see what was going on, he could not leave the emperor by his side. He could only ask him to go in first. The emperor wanted to see the immortal. Now that he had entered the Pan family, his footsteps quickened. When he reached the front yard, he saw the servants coming back and forth to serve the dishes. He could not help but smile. "It seems that I have come at the right time." Pan Ning's father smiled. "Since Your Majesty is here, we will naturally eat together. Perhaps we can even see the immortal." The two of them talked as they walked inside. The emperor, who was walking in front, also slowed down his pace. When he saw the dazzling beauty in red sitting in the middle of the banquet, his breathing could not help but stagnate. Even his footsteps came to a stop. His eyes burned as he looked at the soul-stirring beauty. Could it be that this beautiful woman was a fairy? This was a peerless beauty that should only exist in the heavens. Even the 3,000 beauties in his harem could not compare to this woman. In particular, the noble and elegant temperament that naturally emanated from her body was even more impressive. She was like a dazzling sun. Wherever she appeared, no one else could be seen. His heart thumped slightly. but his breathing slowed down a little, as if he was afraid of startling the immortal. However, his burning eyes followed her closely, watching her every move, every frown, and every smile. The more he looked, the more he felt that she was moving. The more he looked, the more his heart itched. Fengjiu immediately sensed that burning gaze, as if he had seen his prey, but he did not pay attention to it. However, he did not expect that the gaze would become more and more unbridled, causing the smile on her face, who was originally talking to Pan Ning and the others, to fade. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Chapter 4650. His voice became heavier and carried a hint of anxiousness, which caused the emperor, who was intoxicated by Fengjiu's beauty, to come back to his senses. Cough. He uncomfortably clenched his fist and pressed it against his lips as he coughed lightly. He glanced at Pan Fu, then looked at the beautiful woman in red, and said, Minister Pan, this lady should be the immortal, right? Pan Fu wiped his sweat and said, This subject has not seen her before, but since she appeared here, I think she should be. Pan Fu, Pan Hong, Pan Ning, and the others all noticed the emperor's arrival. They also noticed that the emperor looked at Fengjiu with the gaze of a man looking at a woman. If Fengjiu was an ordinary woman, then the emperor, as the ruler of a country, would naturally look at a woman with the gaze of a man. However, Fengjiu was not an ordinary woman. She was an immortal, a woman. Moreover, she was a female immortal who already had a husband and a child. For the emperor to look at her with such a gaze was a blatant offense. Seeing this, their hearts tightened, and they hurriedly stood up to mediate the situation. Greetings, Your Majesty. Pan Hong and the others hurriedly stood up and bowed. Haha, I have come incognito, so there is no need for such formalities. The emperor smiled and waved his hand, his gaze still fixed on Fengjiu. He saw her sitting there, holding a wine cup in her hand and gently turning it. Her fair and slender fingers moved with the movement of the wine cup, giving off a seductive feeling. Impudent, a reprimand came out of Long Shuang's mouth, causing the emperor's mind to tremble. He recovered from his intoxicated state of staring at Fengjiu's fingers and swallowing saliva. He felt a little awkward and was unable to back down, and his face immediately turned green and white. A wave of pressure filled the air, and under this pressure, everyone felt as if a huge rock was pressing down on their chests. Even breathing was difficult. The one who felt the most uncomfortable was the emperor. He stood there, cold sweat seeping out of his forehead. The powerful pressure made him fearful, and he even had the urge to kneel down. However, Long Shuang knew when to stop. She knew that if she made the emperor kneel in front of so many people in the Pan family, he would probably attack the Pan family out of shame and anger. Therefore, she only exerted pressure to make him uncomfortable, but did not directly force him to kneel. After a while, the emperor's clothes were drenched in cold sweat, and his legs were weak. At this time, Fengjiu said, Okay, go and see if the children are here. Yes. Long Shuang then retracted her pressure and turned to leave. Seeing this, Master Pan hurriedly bowed to Fengjiu and said a few words of praise before hurriedly helping the emperor out. Madam, please excuse me for a moment, Pan Hong said, bowing to Fengjiu before pushing his wheelchair away. Madam, please don't be offended. His Majesty has been in power for a long time, so it's inevitable that he loses his sense of propriety sometimes, Master Pan said. Fengjiu smiled and said, It looks like your emperor is not a smart person. As the ruler of a country, it's not good for the people to be so short-sighted. The Pan family did not dare to respond to this. Pan Ning only helped Fengjiu pour wine and talked about other things. On the other side, the emperor, who was being helped away by Master Pan, felt his legs go weak. He wanted to stand, but he could not. It was as if all his strength had disappeared. Chapter 4651. Father Pan looked at him, hesitating to speak. He knew that the emperor was up to no good when he came to their house. This time, he had offended an immortal. Not only would he be in trouble, but he also didn't know if the immortal would blame the Pan family. Master, eldest young master is here, the attendant outside reported. Hearing this, Father Pan looked at the emperor and said, "Your Majesty, let him in." The emperor said, sitting down weakly. Thus, Father Pan went to open the door personally. When he saw his eldest son pushing a wheelchair in, he helped push it in and only closed the door after he entered. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Pan Hong bowed from the wheelchair. "No need." The emperor waved his hand and looked at him, asking, "What are you here for? Do you want to invite me to the banquet?" "Your Majesty." Pan Hong looked at him with a serious expression and said, "Your Majesty, what I'm about to say may be disrespectful, but it's all for your own good. Please forgive me." Hearing this, the emperor's expression changed slightly, but he didn't say anything. He only said, "Then say it." "Yes," Pan Hong replied, then said, "I feel that Your Majesty's actions just now were inappropriate. That is an immortal, a person high up in the heavens. Even if Your Majesty is the ruler of a country, you can't offend an immortal like this. Your Majesty also knows about immortals' instincts. If they are angered, they can destroy our entire dynasty in an instant." Seeing that the emperor's face had changed greatly and seemed to be nervous, Pan Honkai continued, "In the country under Your Majesty's control, having an immortal visit our dynasty is a great blessing that you can't even ask for. No matter which country's monarch receives the news, they will definitely express their goodwill to Your Majesty in order to befriend you. How can Your Majesty ruin such a good thing, such a great blessing, because of your momentary confusion? Then according to your words, what should I do now?" He already knew the seriousness of the matter and the pros and cons. His head that had been blinded by the beauty also sobered up at this moment and hurriedly asked Pan Hong. After Pan Hong could no longer stand up, he resigned from his position and stayed at home. Since he was already a court official, he shouldn't have said such things. However, this matter didn't just concern the emperor, it also concerned the Pan family. Thus, he could only speak up boldly and tell him the pros and cons. Now that he saw that he was willing to listen, he relaxed slightly and said, "If Your Majesty listens to my words, you will personally apologize and then return to the palace." Apologize? The emperor was a little hesitant. As the ruler of a country, how could he swallow his pride and apologize? "If Your Majesty feels that it is inappropriate to go personally, you can return to the palace first and send someone to send some gifts as an apology. My father and I will definitely put in a good word for Your Majesty in front of the immortal and ask for her forgiveness," Pan Hong said again. Hearing this, the emperor hurriedly said, That's good. We'll do as you say. I'll return to the palace now and have someone send over a generous gift. You must put in a good word for me in front of the immortals. I really didn't mean to offend you." "Yes," Pan Hong replied. Seeing this, Pan Hong's father heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, I'll send you out." No need. You can accompany the immortal. I'll leave on my own." He waved his hand and took a deep breath before walking out. A few guards escorted him out. Chapter 46:52. Fortunately, the emperor still valued his empire and was not blinded by beauty. Otherwise, they really didn't know how to clean up this mess. "Let's go back to the banquet first," Father Pan said, gesturing for him to go forward with him. Pan Hong nodded his head and pushed the wheelchair forward. Father Pan saw this and didn't help him because he was used to doing it himself. He only said, "Our Pan family is really lucky. I didn't expect Hao Er's mother to come here personally." Yes, I didn't expect them to come again either. In his opinion, the three children had given them treasures before they left and had done so much for the Pan family. Even if there was any kindness, it should have been repaid long ago. Moreover, the Pan family hadn't done anything for them. If there was anything, it would have been for the period of time when they lived in the Pan family's home when they were stranded here. And this time, the Pan family knew that the other party didn't hide their identity as immortals when they came to the imperial city. Now that they came to their house, they brought glory to the Pan family. After today, everyone would know that the Pan family had some relationship with immortals. Everyone would have to treat them differently. Even if they weren't important officials in the imperial court, no one would dare to look down on them. When they came to the front of the banquet, the other people, including the children, had also arrived. The two of them came to Fengjiu's side. Father Pan said apologetically, "Madam, I'm really sorry." Fengjiu raised his hand and interrupted him, saying, "Forget it. There's no need to talk about other things. This time, we won't stay here for too long. Our main goal is to treat eldest young master's legs. Both of you, please take a seat." Seeing this, the two of them responded and sat down at the banquet. Perhaps it was because Fengjiu and the others were immortals, or perhaps it was because of the natural pressure that emanated from them that they were a little restrained. On the other hand, the children relaxed a little during the banquet, especially Bo Qing. It was rare for him to see his friends again, so he was always in a state of excitement. The Pan family chatted with Fengjiu and the others as they drank and chatted. It was late into the night before they went back to the courtyard to rest. Although it was late at night, 17, who came back with Fengjiu and the others, did not go back to rest. Instead, she gathered with her former Shadow Guard brothers. 17, I didn't expect you to become an immortal. What a great fortune. Yes, who would have thought that you, 17, would become an immortal one day? You really make us envious. 17, tell us about the immortal world. Is there anything we haven't seen? Did the immortals fly in the sky? 17, can you fly? Many shadow guards surrounded 17 and asked enviously. There were so many of them, but only 17 had walked out. Moreover, it was second young master who gave him to young master Hao and asked him to follow them. They did not expect that he would receive the immortal fate. Chapter 46:53. Ever since 17 left with the three children, some of them wondered if 17 was already dead. After all, 17 had to protect the three children, and the place they were going to was probably filled with unknown dangers. Who would have thought that 17 was still alive and even obtained the immortal fate? This made them envious. 17 looked at them and said, "The immortal world is the same as the mortal world. It can even be said that it's more dangerous. With my skills, I don't even have a chance to fight back in front of those immortals. Furthermore, immortals don't even need to lift a finger to kill people. Just a wave of pressure is enough to crush people. You don't know this, but those beasts all have spiritual intelligence, and their fighting power is very shocking." That night, 17 told his former brothers about the immortal world. Some are beautiful, and some are cruel. While they were amazed and envious, they were also shocked. They didn't expect that the immortal world was the same as their mortal world. There was an inescapable cruelty. However, even though they knew that there was killing there, they still yearned for it. After all, stepping into the immortal world meant that they had twice the lifespan of a mortal. Furthermore, they could see so many things that they had never seen before. Even though they knew that it was cruel, they still regretted that they didn't have the immortal fate. The next morning, Fengjiu helped Pan Hong to inject spiritual power into the silver needles to activate the blood vessels and meridians in his legs. He also asked someone to prepare a medicinal bath for him. Not long after he returned to the courtyard, he saw Pan Hong's father bringing over the gifts that the emperor had ordered people to send over. "Madam, these are the gifts sent by our emperor." Pan Hong ordered people to send the gifts to Fengjiu's courtyard and place them on the table. He said, "These can't be compared to the treasures that Madam has seen before, but it's still a small token of His Majesty's appreciation." Fengjiu smiled and said, "I'll give it to you. These things are useless to us." Seeing this, Pan Ning ordered people to send the gifts to the main courtyard. This was because they also knew that these things that they regarded as treasures were useless to immortals. Fengjiu slowly walked to the courtyard and sat down, watching the children play outside the courtyard. Father Pan and Pan Ning also sat down at the table under Fengjiu's signal. Pan Hong's legs only need 3 days to be pierced with silver needles. The rest of the time, he will slowly recover by soaking in the medicinal bath. When his legs are able to stand up and walk, let him walk more in the early morning every day. He will recover faster. Hearing Fengjiu's words, Father Pan and Pan Ning quickly responded, "Okay, we'll remember it." "Father, Grandpa, I want to cultivate like Sister Yu and Mu Chun." Fu Qing ran over and held Pan Ning's hand. "I want to be as powerful as them." "Father, not only can I not beat Mu Chun, but I also can't beat Yu." He admitted that he was no match for Mu Chun, but why couldn't he even touch Yu Er's clothes? Don't mess around, Pan Ning scolded. I'm not messing around. I want to cultivate. He refused to admit defeat and was not afraid of his father's scolding. Instead, he went to his grandfather's side and tugged at his sleeve. Grandpa, I want to cultivate. I want to become very powerful. Children shouldn't mess around, Father Pan said and patted his hand to comfort him. Chapter 4654. Father Pan and Pan Ning's hearts skipped a beat when they heard this. They looked at Fengjiu in unison. Fengjiu looked at the silly little boy in front of her and thought of her brother's son. She chuckled and asked, "Do you know what cultivation is? You could be very powerful if you cultivate. If I cultivate, I might be able to beat Mu Chun." He looked at Mu Chun and Mu Yu, who were walking towards his mother. He wanted to beat Mu Chun because he was a boy and older than Mu Chun, but he couldn't beat him. Fengjiu's smile widened at the child's childish words. She reached out and placed her hand on the top of the little boy's head. She raised her eyebrows in surprise and smiled. "I didn't expect you to be a martial artist." Pan Ning couldn't help but ask, "Madam, my son, he has the body of a mystic cultivator, so he can cultivate. His muscles and bones are not bad," Fengjiu said with a smile. Then, Father Pan suddenly became nervous. He was so excited that he couldn't speak. "Aunt Feng, then can I cultivate with Sister Yu Er and Mu Chun?" Bo Qing looked at her with shining eyes. His little face was full of excitement. Fengjiu smiled. "What they cultivate is not suitable for you. However, if you really want to step into the cultivation world, I can find you a good place to go." As she spoke, she looked at Pan Ning and Pan Fu. The two didn't need her to say more. Pan Ning immediately said, "If Madam can send my son to cultivate, the Pan family will be very grateful." He quickly stood up and bowed. Yes, Father Pan said. Seeing this, Fengjiu looked at them and said, "Do you know that the cultivation world is also cruel? You won't be able to live peacefully after entering the cultivation world. If he chooses to stay in the mortal world, I think that the descendants of the Pan family will be able to live a carefree life and will even have a high position. However, if he goes to the cultivation world, he can only start from the lowest point. Perhaps he will be killed before he can grow up and die in a battle with others. Then, do you still want him to set foot in the cultivation world?" Father Pan and Pan Ning were stunned. Perhaps they knew this would happen, but when the cruelty of the situation was placed in front of them, they didn't know how to choose. If they allowed Bo Qing to leave with them to cultivate, and if he could grow up, the Pan family would also become a family with immortals in the future. Perhaps many years later, the descendants of the Pan family would also be able to step into the cultivation world because of Bo Qing. However, Bo Qing was still so young. How could they make such a decision for him? Bo Qing looked at his grandfather, then at his father. Finally, he said resolutely, I want to go. I want to become very powerful. Aunt Feng, can I go with you?" Bowen walked up and asked Fengjiu. Fengjiu looked at him and reached out a hand. Then he shook his head. "You don't have a spiritual root, and you're not a mystical cultivator. You can't become an immortal. You can only be immortal. In the mortal world, there were very few children with spiritual roots. It was normal that they couldn't detect his spiritual roots and mystical chi constitution." Chapter 4655. "Mother, let's bring big brother Fu Qing with us. We can cultivate together and grow up together in the future," Yu Er said with a smile. She looked at Fu Qing and Pan Ning as if she had thought of something. In the end, she asked with some distress, "Big brother Fu Qing, are you willing to leave your father and mother? If you leave with us, what will you do if you can't see them in the future?" Hearing this, Fu Qing was startled and seemed to be in a daze. He looked at his father and muttered, "I can't see them in the future? Then when I grow up, can I come back?" Fengjiu smiled and said, "Of course, when you are strong enough, you can naturally come back." Fu Qing turned to look at his father, his little face full of seriousness, and said, "Father, when I grow up and become very powerful, I will come back to see you." Hearing this, Pan Ning had an indescribable feeling in his heart. In the end, he could only sigh and solemnly bowed to Fengjiu, saying, "Madam, please bring Fu Qing with you. Whether it is a blessing or a curse, it will depend on his own good fortune. When we leave, let him come with us. Don't worry, I will find a good place for him to go." Feng Jiu smiled and didn't say anything else. What she said before was just to test him. Since she could take this little boy away, she would naturally find a good place for him so that he could learn things and grow up safely. Therefore, when this decision was made, the Pan family also discussed this matter. However, this matter was not known to anyone else. Only the masters of the Pan family knew. According to Feng Jiu's suggestion, not long after they left, let the Pan family release the news that Fu Qing had passed away due to a sudden illness. She wanted them to act as if Fu Qing didn't exist here. Only this would be a good thing for the Pan family. In the next few days, Feng Jiu said goodbye to the Pan family when Pan Hong's legs could slightly stand. When they came, they caused quite a commotion, but when they left quietly. Fu Qing's mother, Pan Ning's wife, watched her son leave with them and cried until she fainted in Pan Ning's arms. She didn't know if she would have the chance to see her child again. On the spaceship, Fu Qing sat at the side, wiping his tears and sniffling. Looking at the place getting farther and farther away, he secretly decided that in the future, he would definitely come back. He would definitely come back to see his father and mother, as well as his great-grandfather and grandfather. "Brother Fu Qing, here is a fruit to eat, don't cry." You gave him a spirit fruit. "A man don't cry shameful." Mu Chen's expression was still cool, but he seemed to know how it felt to leave one's parents. Hence, although his delicate little face was tense, he softened his tone and said, "My mother will find you a good master. When that time comes, you just have to practice hard. When you grow up and become stronger, you can come back whenever you want." "What's there to cry about?" "I just want to cry. Don't worry about me. I just want to cry, not bleed." He wiped his tears and turned his back to Mu Chen. Howard walked over and didn't say anything. He just sat down and quietly looked at the sky outside. Chapter 46:56. She looked at the masked man sitting cross-legged in the corner of the bow. She saw that his aura was calm, and he was sitting there with his eyes closed. There was a small barrier around him that protected his body. During this period of time, she also realized that he would find a place to sit cross-legged sometimes. It didn't look like he was cultivating, but more like his soul was out of his body. Thinking back to what he had said earlier, that this was not his body, and that he had only borrowed this body to come here, he was even more certain of his guess that his soul had left his body. Half a year. After half a year, the children would leave with him. Thinking of this, she took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. After a pause, she sat up and looked at her 3 children. "You guys come here." She waved at the 3 of them. When the 3 children saw her, they went to their mother's side. Yu threw herself into her arms, while Mu Chun and Howard stood at the side. Mother, what kind of master are you looking for Brother Buqing?" Yu looked up and asked in her arms. Feng Jiu stroked her little head and smiled gently. "He's a mystic, so naturally, I'll find him a mystic to be his master. Don't worry, I'll find him a good one." "Mother, Uncle is a mystic," Mu Chun said. Hearing this, Feng Jiu raised an eyebrow and looked at him. "You mean to send him to your uncle and let him accept him as a disciple?" Actually, she wanted to send Pan Buqing to a sect. As long as she said the word, no matter which sect he was sent to, he would be well-groomed. "Isn't that good?" Mu Chun asked with doubt in his eyes. Feng Jiu shook her head and said, "It's not that it's not good, but it's not very suitable. Because he's your uncle, I can't make the decision to accept a disciple for him. So, I'm going to send Buqing to a sect and find him a good master. As long as his talent is outstanding and he's willing to work hard, he will definitely be successful in the future." Yes. When Mu Chun heard her say this, he thought that his mother had her own considerations and that it must be for Buqing's good, so he didn't say much. "Mother, where are we going now?" Howard asked. "Let's go to Xinyuan Empire, to your grandfather's place." Feng Jiu said, "Ever since we found you, we only informed your grandfather. We haven't brought you to see him yet. This time, we're going to stay there for a while." If she sent the children away, he would have fewer chances to see them in the future. This time, she was bringing them back so that they could accompany him. Moreover, she had to find a chance to talk to him about Mose. Putting away her thoughts, she looked at the three children and said, "The medicinal pills that Mother gave you have pretty much been used up, right? What did he lack? Mother will find time to refine some more for you." Mother, we don't have any more medicinal pills to treat our internal injuries. Even Big Brother couldn't bear to use them last time. Let's use it. Eeyore hastily said. Mother, we're running out of medicine for external injuries, Muchin added. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. Mother understands. Then Mother will help you refine some more and distribute them to you. In the future, when they leave her side, it seems that she will have to refine more pills for them. Chapter 46:57. Fengjiu said, then took out a book which recorded all kinds of elixirs and handed it over to Eeyore. She said, inside this book, not only the effect of all kinds of elixirs, but also the effect of each elixir is clearly drawn on it. Mother has made some notes and some experience. You keep it. Later when you have time, you can read it. Mother, you already has one. The little girl looked at her mother in surprise. She also had one of her mother's medicine books in her space. Fengjiu smiled and said, that book is different from this one. Keep it. These books are already useless to Mother. Don't you want to learn medicine, poison, and so on? Then read more books and study more. Only by doing experiments yourself will you clearly know the difference between the effects of each elixir. The little girl nodded her head as if she understood. Then she took the book and sweetly smiled. Thank you, Mother. Fengjiu patted her head and took out some things from her space for Hao and Muchun. She told them to keep these things, perhaps they would be useful in the future. After that, she got up and entered the cabin. She told Lung Shuang to stand guard outside, while she entered her space to refine elixirs for the children. After a few days, the airship slowly landed outside the palace gate of Xinyuan Empire. When the airship landed, the people guarding the palace gate quickly went in to report. When Emperor Xinyuan knew that Fengjiu and the others had come, his face couldn't help but overflow with a happy smile. He didn't wait for them to enter the palace. Instead, he rushed out and arrived in front of the palace gate. Grandpa, Eeyore excitedly rushed towards Emperor Xinyuan with her short legs. Ha! Grandpa's good granddaughter has come. Quickly let Grandpa see how much taller you have grown. Emperor Xinyuan picked up the child and pinched her chubby little hands. Then he patted her little head. The more he looked at her, the happier he was. Good. You didn't lose weight. It's good to be chubby. It's good to be chubby, he said with gratification. Seeing that the children had returned safely, his heart was finally at ease. Grandpa, Hao and Muchun stepped forward and respectfully bowed to him. We are back. Good. It's good that you're back. He nodded as he spoke. Tears welled up in his eyes. He looked at Fengjiu and said, it's good that you found the children. I'm relieved that they're back. Thank you for your hard work this time. As he spoke, he glanced at the people beside Fengjiu and was a little surprised. Other than a few familiar people, there was also a masked man, a guard in black, and a little boy. Du Fan, Lung Hua, and Lung Shuang were all there, but Mose was nowhere to be seen. Where's Mose? Why didn't he come back with you? He asked, feeling a little strange. Father. Fengjiu was the first to call out. He walked forward and said, let's talk inside. Hearing this, the Emperor of Xinyuan Kingdom was stunned for a moment. Then he burst out laughing. That's right. Look at me. You guys came all the way here and you're asking me questions here. Come. Quick, follow me in. Are you guys hungry? I'll get the Imperial Kitchen to prepare some food for you. Then have a good rest. The group entered the palace. Emperor Xuanyuan's face was full of smiles when they arrived. He got the Imperial Kitchen to prepare some food and the servants to tidy up the place for them to stay. Chapter 46:58. Have a seat. The Emperor of Xinyuan gestured. He looked at her and asked, did something happen to Mose? Actually, when he saw that his son did not return today and Fengjiu did not answer his question, he had a vague guess in his heart. However, he did not know what could have happened with his son's abilities. Fengjiu nodded and sat down on the chair. Father, before we found the children, something happened to Mose. It happened because of his advancement. Breakthrough? The Emperor of the Xinyuan Kingdom's heart sank. Something like a breakthrough was no small matter. It's like this. Feng Jiu told him everything that happened that day. In the end, he said, "My brother went back to the land that Mose controlled to investigate. On the day that something happened to Mose, the land shook greatly. However, his spiritual energy did not completely disappear. Hence, we guess that he is not dead. We just don't know where he is now." Hearing this, the emperor of Xianyuan sighed softly and said, "We heard the sound of thunder from here. However, it was too far away. We did not receive any news and did not know that something had happened to him." He looked at Feng Jiu and said with a heavy heart, "Who can say for sure that he is still alive under such heavenly lightning? Even if his spiritual energy did not completely disappear, it could be a matter of time. The heavenly lightning was so powerful that even he could not withstand it. No, I don't believe that he is dead. I don't believe that he no longer exists in this world. I would rather believe that he is recuperating somewhere." Feng Jiu said firmly, "He is my son. Why would I not want him to be alive? I'm just worried that if you have too much hope, you'll suffer a bigger blow in the future. It's good to have hope in your heart, but you have to be mentally prepared. You can't wait until the time comes when the hope in your heart is shattered and your beliefs can't hold on." Feng Jiu remained silent and did not say a word. She knew that he said this for her own good and to prepare her mentally. However, she did not want to believe and would not believe that Mose did not exist in this world. He must still be alive. The emperor of Xianyuan did not continue on this topic. Instead, he asked, "The children don't know yet, right? Are you not going to tell them?" "I haven't thought of how to tell them," Feng Jiu said worriedly. "Although they are young, they are already sensible. If I tell them, I am worried that their small hearts will not be able to take it." Hearing this, he sighed softly and said, "The children are stronger than you think. Don't worry. Tell them. They're already sensible and they should know." "Father, actually, I have something else to tell you this time." Feng Jiu looked at him. Tell me. I am listening. What is it?" he asked. Feng Jiu stretched out his hand and set up a soundproof barrier. Then he said, "Mose is in trouble because someone from the immortal realm is pressuring us and wants to kill us. So, I'm preparing to send the 3 children away. The masked man who came with us today is a powerful person from the immortal realm. She carefully explained the seriousness of the matter to him and the decision she made. She hoped that he would understand. Chapter 46:59. "I'm not sure about the situation up there, but for now, that's right." She nodded. "Since you're not sure about the situation up there, how can you be sure that the children will grow up safely after you send them up there? And how can you be sure that the person who doesn't even want to tell us his name will really protect them?" The emperor of Xianyuan Kingdom asked, unable to loosen his frown. After hearing Feng Jiu's words, he became even more worried. "I've been observing him all this time, and I feel that this person is trustworthy. Besides that, there's another matter regarding you, Inside the palace, outsiders were unable to know what the 2 of them were talking about inside the barrier. At this time, because it was evening, the children were playing around in the palace. Especially Bo Qing, who had never seen such a beautiful palace, was very excited. This place is so beautiful. Mu Chun, your grandfather, is actually the emperor. That's really amazing." Bo Qing exclaimed. He didn't expect them to have such an identity. Mu Chun glanced at him and said, "Of course my grandfather is amazing, but my parents are even more amazing. They are the masters of heaven and earth, much more powerful than the emperor. In the future, I will also be as powerful as my parents, so you can't beat me." "I don't believe it. I will also be very powerful in the future. I will definitely beat you," Bo Qing said, unconvinced. "Brother Bo Qing, I'll take you to see the spirit beasts in the palace." Ur stepped forward and pulled his hand, saying, "My grandfather also has a red-crowned crane that can fly. I'll take you to see it." "Really? Okay. Let's go see it." When Bo Qing heard this, his eyes lit up and his little face was full of excitement. In an instant, he forgot about what had just happened. It could be said that other than secretly crying when he first left home for a day or 2, after a long time, he no longer cried when he thought of his parents and family. More often than not, he was attracted by new and interesting things. This was because during this time, He had seen many new and strange things and things. In the future, he might see more and know more. When Leng Hua and Leng Shuang saw them walking towards the spirit beast garden, they followed behind them unhurriedly. Although it was said that it was very safe and there wouldn't be any more people like the demon master appearing, they would still follow behind to protect him, just in case. After staying in the palace for 2 days, Feng Jiu asked Du Fan to send Bo Qing to the sect that she, Yi Jing, and her brother had cultivated him before. Because there, other than spirit cultivators, there were also mystic cultivators. After thinking about it, she felt that sending Bo Qing there was the most suitable. On this day, Feng Jiu watched the children say their goodbyes and felt a little uncomfortable. Therefore, after this farewell, it would be difficult for them to see each other again in the future. When you go there, you have to cultivate well. Don't just fight with others. Remember to run when you can't beat others. Mu Chen looked at the red-eyed Bo Qing and said stiffly, "Sob, sob, sob, I know. I'll miss you guys. When I become more powerful, I'll come and fight with you. At that time, I'll definitely be able to defeat you." He cried as he wiped his tears. The corner of Mu Chen's mouth twitched. Originally, he was still a little reluctant, but suddenly it became subtle. He could only say with a straight face, "I will wait." Chapter 4660. Holding the dagger, Fu Qing wiped his tears and said, "Yes, yes, I know. I will take good care of myself. You guys should take good care of yourselves, too. Don't get lost again. All right, it's getting late. Let's go." Du Fan stepped forward and patted Fu Qing's shoulder. He looked at Feng Jiu and said, "Master, I'll send him to the sect first. I'll come back when I'm done with the matter." "Okay, go." Feng Jiu gestured. He watched him take out the flying device and leave with 17 and Fu Qing. Only then did he look at the 3 children. "Let's go back to the palace. During this period of time, accompany your grandfather well." Feng Jiu stroked the children's heads and said. The 3 followed her inside. You were asked, "Mother, will we be able to see Fu Qing again in the future?" Feng Jiu held her hand and walked forward. She looked ahead and said, "There's no such thing as an eternal banquet in the world. We meet when we are fated, and when we are not, we part ways. Let nature take its course. There's no need to be too deliberate." The 3 children listened and fell silent. After a while, they nodded. "Yes, we understand. Mother, where's father?" Mu Chen asked and looked up at her. "You haven't told us where father went." "Mother, did something happen to father?" Feng Jiu stopped in her tracks, and her expression flickered. She lowered her head and looked at her son beside her. She revealed a gentle smile and reached out to stroke his hair. How and you were also looking at her, as if waiting for her answer. Thus, she looked at the palace fence not far away and said, "Let's go there. I'll tell you guys." Thus, the 3 children followed her to the fence. When they saw her sitting on the fence, the 3 children imitated her and sat beside her. The 3 children's 6 eyes fell on her at the same time, waiting for her to tell them. "A while ago, the weakening of the blood curse on your bodies was indeed related to your father. Something happened to him when he was advancing, and we don't know where he is now. However, you don't have to worry. He will definitely be fine. Perhaps he is just recuperating somewhere and will come back to find us when his body recovers." Feng Jiu only gave them a brief summary of the situation. Only she knew how dangerous it was, but she didn't want the children to think too much or worry too much, so she only gave them a brief summary. "Even mother doesn't know where father is?" Yu wrinkled her small face, then blinking her pair of worried eyes, she looked at her mother. Feng Jiu smiled and rubbed her little head. "Your father is very powerful. You don't have to worry about him. However, mother still has something to tell you 3. "Mother, what's the matter?" Our asked. "After a period of time, mother will send you to other places to learn and cultivate. Therefore, during this period of time, you must remember what mother taught you. Perhaps in the future, you'll be able to use it. Mother wants to send us away. Where are we going? We don't want to learn and cultivate with mother." Yu hurriedly said, her pair of small hands tightly clutching her mother's sleeve. "Mother, I also don't want to leave mother. I want to stay by mother's side." Mu Chen also said. Chapter 4661. Hearing the children's words, Feng Jiu felt a bit sour in her heart. She looked at them and revealed a faint smile. You have to listen to Mother obediently. No matter what Mother does, it's for your own good. When the three children heard this, they looked at each other and fell silent. All right, I'll send you to Grandfather's place. You have to accompany Grandfather. Mother will go back and refine pills for you. She led the children to the main hall. After sending them to the main hall, she had Lung Hua look after them. Only then did she enter her room and flash into the space. After about a month, Du Fan returned. After arriving at the palace, he first went to find Feng Jiu to report the matter of sending Bo Qing to the sect, as well as the matter of sending 17 to the Phoenix Guards for training. As for Luo Yu, Qin Xian, and the others, because they were told to take care of their various strongholds, they didn't come with them. Master, Luo Yu, and the others have taken care of everything else. Right now, there aren't any major events happening in the various strongholds. During this period of time, Master can rest assured that everything will be normal. Du Fan helped Feng Jiu pour a cup of tea and said, Feng Jiu had just finished refining a cauldron of pills. Her clothes were stained with the smell of medicine, and she looked a bit tired. She took a sip of tea and said, with them looking after me, of course I can rest assured. We've been living here for almost a month. For the remaining time, I plan to take the three children out for a walk and see the outside world. You should go back and rest for today. Pack up and prepare to leave tomorrow. Yes, Du Fan replied and bowed before leaving. Master, the water for a bath has been prepared. Do you want to take a bath first? Lung Hua walked up and asked. Feng Jiu replied. He stood up and rubbed his shoulders, asking, where did the children go to play? They're training with Lung Hua in the martial arts field. Lung Hua said. Hearing this, Feng Jiu nodded and went in to take a bath, preparing to wash away his fatigue and relax. And at the training field, Mu Chun and Mu Yu were having a contest. They were trying to fight barehanded, and there were several times when Mu Chun easily threw Yu to the ground. However, the ground in the martial arts field was not hard. Instead, it was made of fine sand. There was no pain when one fell on it. However, the little girl had been thrown on the sand time and time again. Her temper was starting to get a little worse. I'll believe that big brother won't fall, Yu said, looking at her brother who was firmly standing in horse stance. She rolled her eyes and revealed a crafty smile. The next moment, she directly ran forward. She didn't wave her small fist to attack, rather used her small body to forcefully collide with him. Mu Chan saw her lowering her head like a calf and couldn't help but be startled. He quickly reached out to block her small head, who knew that the little girl would use all her strength, and this collision really knocked him to the ground. Big brother also fell. Yu laughed happily. She didn't get up and just lay on Mu Chin's body, shouting and dancing. Not far away, Hao who was training with Lung Hua, heard the laughter and looked back. He saw his brother and sister playing on sand. Seeing this, his cold face couldn't help but reveal a smile. However, it was also at this time that his face suddenly changed. It was because the fine sand on the sand suddenly rolled up and formed a human sandman that rushed towards Mu Chun and Mu Yu. Chapter 4662. Almost at the same time, Lung Hua's expression changed, and he immediately rushed toward Mu Chun and Mu Yu. However, the sandman formed by the fine sand pounced on the two children at an extremely fast speed. Dodge! Lung Hua shouted. At the same time, he condensed a wind blade in his hand. Whoosh! Bang! With a swoosh, a wind blade cut through the air, bringing with it a swift and fierce airflow. Immediately after, the wind palm accurately hit the human figure condensed from fine sand. With a bang, the condensed fine sand instantly scattered all over the ground, and a yellow talisman also floated to the ground. Seeing this, Lung Hua heaved a sigh of relief. Even Hao who was running over, also let out a sigh of relief. The two little guys on the ground also recovered from their shock at this time. They quickly stood up and patted the fine sand off their bodies. But at this moment, the talisman on the ground suddenly exploded with a bang, scattering into pieces. The moment it exploded, the fine sand on the training field rolled up, and a sand wall rose up along with the aura that came out of nowhere, enclosing them inside. Oh no! Lung Hua had just heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the sudden change. He immediately took out an item from his space and crushed it. At the same time, he rushed toward the two little ones, shouting, "How come here?" How had the strength of a golden core cultivator, and his ability to adapt was not bad. Therefore, Lung Hua only thought of Mu Chun and Mu Yu. After all, the two of them had limited combat power. If they really encountered danger, they would not be able to protect themselves. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! The wind and sand swirled, and the fine sand on the ground was rolled up to form a sand wall to encircle them in the middle. In the middle, some fine sand quickly condensed into human figures and attacked Mu Chun and Mu Yu. The two little guys had already recovered from their shock. Seeing the human-shaped killers formed by the fine sand, Mu Chun immediately pulled his sister and ran toward Lung Hua. "Sister, hurry!" The guards quickly went to report the shocking change. Feng Jiu, who was bathing, was lying in the water with her eyes closed. Suddenly, she seemed to have sensed something. She immediately raised her chi and splashed the water. At the same time, she quickly put on her inner clothes and put on her outer clothes. She didn't even bother to tie the belt of her outer clothes and rushed outside. Lung Shuang, who was guarding outside, did not know what was going on. But when she saw her master rushing outside while fastening his belt, she knew that it was urgent. She immediately followed after him. The masked man in the courtyard next door also seemed to sense something strange. Under the mask, his brows slightly furrowed, and his originally closed eyes suddenly opened. He rushed outside. The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom rushed over after hearing the report from his guard. However, when he arrived at the training grounds, he saw that the training grounds had already been sealed off. The sand that was originally laid on the ground had formed 4 sand walls that surrounded the entire training grounds. He couldn't see what was going on inside, but he could feel a very powerful aura surging within. "How? Chinner, you are..." The emperor of Xianyuan shouted, but he could not hear the sound coming from inside. He could only hear the rustling of the wind and sand. Thus, he gathered his spiritual aura and was about to rush in to take a look when a hand landed on his shoulder. Before he could see who it was, he heard Feng Jiu's voice. Chapter 4663. As the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom was pushed back, he only saw a red figure rushing forward. In the blink of an eye, the figure entered the sand wall. Seeing that it was Feng Jiu, the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom did not enter. Instead, he took a step back to watch and wait. At this moment, the masked man also arrived. However, he did not enter. Instead, he stood beside the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom and quietly watched the scene in front of him with a thoughtful look in his eyes. In the middle of the training field, within the sand wall, Lung Hua was destroying the human-shaped sand. However, these human-shaped sand were not alive. After being hit, they scattered on the ground and became a pile of loose sand. However, in the next moment, these loose sand gathered together to form a human-shaped figure and attacked them again. This process repeated over and over again. Even though his strength was not weak, he was unable to block the human-shaped sand while protecting the 2 children at the same time. Seeing that 4 or 5 human-shaped sand were surrounding the 2 children, Lung Hua and Howard immediately shouted, "Quickly, get out of the way. Run." The 2 of them struck out with their palms, intending to destroy the human-shaped sand. However, they did not expect that after the human-shaped sand surrounded the 2 children, they actually scattered into a pile of loose sand and fell to the ground. Then, they quickly piled up and buried the 2 children. The wind and sand swirled and covered the 2 children as if it wanted to bury them alive. Yu, who had never encountered such a situation, cried out in alarm. She instinctively hugged her head and squatted down. Seeing this, Mu Chun hurriedly used his small body to shield his sister. Just when they thought that they would definitely be buried alive, they heard a familiar and reassuring voice. "Draw a circle on the ground. Break." The moment Feng Jiu's voice sounded, the 3 children fiercely looked in the direction of the voice. Not far away, their mother's red dress fluttered in the wind. Her beautiful face was filled with a cold voice. They saw her forming a strange seal with her hands and pinching a talisman between her fingers. As the seal fell, the talisman was also burned out by the flames that rose from her fingertips. As soon as she said the word break, the ground that was as calm as the surface of a lake was smashed by a stone, and a powerful aura rippled out. In that instant, the surrounding wind and sand also fell, and the fine sand that had condensed into a human shape also fell to the ground. Faintly, there seemed to be some fragments of talismans among the fine sand. "Mother! Mother! Mother!" The three children cheered happily and quickly ran toward her. The moment they saw her, the three of them forgot the fright just now and only joy and peace. Fengjiu glanced around and saw that the surrounding sandstorm had calmed down. She then looked at the three children and asked, "Mother's death. Are you injured?" "Mother, we are not injured." "But mother, where did that come from? Why did the sand turn into a human?" Our asked. "Talismans." The masked man slowly walked forward and glanced at the people standing in the martial arts field. Then, his gaze fell on Fengjiu, who was practicing martial arts. The masked man looked at Fengjiu and said in a deep voice, "They have already begun to attack you. You don't have much time left." Chapter 46-64. She looked at the talismans scattered on the sand and waved her hand. A flame swept across them and burned all the talisman fragments. "What's going on? Who used the talismans against you?" The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom asked. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the children were fine. "Father, don't worry. It's fine now. I'll send the children back to rest first." "I'll look for you in a while," Fengjiu said. The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom nodded when he heard that. "All right, go ahead." He watched as they walked towards the side hall where they were resting. He sighed softly and shook his head. He then walked back with his hands behind his back. Fengjiu sent the three children back to their rooms and asked them to bathe first. She then turned to Leng Hua and asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Leng Hua said. He then said apologetically, "I just didn't protect the three little masters well. You've already done a good job. Watch over them. Pack up while you're at it. We're leaving tomorrow." Fengjiu instructed. She then asked Leng Hua to stay as well. When she saw the masked man sitting in the courtyard, she said, "I'm going to say goodbye to Father." With a lot on her mind, Fengjiu went to the main hall. Father Xianyuan was already waiting there. When he saw her enter, he gestured to her and said, "Have a seat." Fengjiu sat down and said, "Father, I'm preparing to leave with the children tomorrow." The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom hesitated when he heard that. He asked, "You're leaving? Is it because of what happened today?" "I was going to leave anyway. I wanted to take the children out to see the world. I didn't expect something like this to happen today. So I'm leaving tomorrow." She was going to leave tomorrow. Now that something like this had happened, she couldn't stay here any longer. She was afraid that she would bring trouble to him and the empire. "Then where are you going? Do you have a target?" he asked. Thinking that his three grandsons were about to leave, he felt reluctant to part with them. Fengjiu paused for a moment, then said, "We still need to make a trip to the heavens. As for the other matters, it hasn't been decided yet. Half a year's time is almost up. Perhaps I will let the children go with their master in advance." "Sigh, I got it. You guys can go now. Take good care of yourselves and take care of yourselves. Nothing is more important than safety. No matter where you go, if you have the chance in the future, just bring the children back to see me. If you can't come back, just remember to send me a message to let me know that you are all safe." He sighed softly, and there was an unconcealable loneliness in his words. Fengjiu's lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, he just nodded. "I will." She took out some pills from her space and said, "Father, keep these pills with you just in case. If you encounter any problems in the future that you can't solve, you can send a message to my brother and ask him to come and help." He didn't refuse and took the pills. He replied, "Okay, I got it." Fengjiu stood up and looked at him deeply. "Father, parting is the saddest thing. You don't have to send us off tomorrow morning." Hearing that, he felt bitter. He looked at her and said, "Okay, take care of yourselves. Don't worry too much about this place. We are all fine here. Just take care of yourselves." Chapter 46-65. The next morning, Fengjiu and the rest boarded the spaceship and left. The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom didn't send them off. Instead, He stood at a high vantage point and watched as their spaceship slowly ascended into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. Only then did the Emperor of the Xianyuan Kingdom retract his gaze and walk back slowly. At the bow of the spaceship, Fengjiu set up a soundproof enchantment. He looked at the masked man and said, "Didn't you say that they couldn't come down? Then how did they use talismans to create assassins?" The masked man leaned on one side. Compared to Fengjiu, his expression was more relaxed. He glanced at her and then looked at the clouds outside the spaceship. He said, "They can't come down, but that doesn't mean they can't do anything. Furthermore, they dealt with Xianyuan Mos. Naturally, they won't leave you alive. It's only a matter of time before they make a move. Furthermore, since they've already made a move, it's impossible for them to stop." He paused and then said casually, "It seems like the rest of the journey won't be too boring." Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. He said, "Then shouldn't you tell me about what happened up there? What should I tell you? Tell you that you're still an ant to the people up there who can kill you anytime with your current strength? Or that the people up there want to kill you, and you'll have a slim chance of survival in the coming days?" He glanced at Fengjiu and swirled the wine glass in his hand. He smiled faintly and said, "I heard that you're destined to break through the 8 extremes of the heavenly Tao and become the master of the world. Perhaps this is a prophecy made by some of the people down there who are knowledgeable about the past and present. However, in the eyes of the people up there, those who are destined to have such a destiny are people who will be plagued with misfortune. They will have to go through all kinds of dangers and may even die at any time. Even if you're lucky enough to grow up, they will have many opportunities to kill you before you can stand shoulder to shoulder with them." Fengjiu pursed his lips and frowned. He said calmly, "I don't want to know that. I just want to know how I can find my enemies. Also, is it only by ascending that I can see those powerful beings that you speak of? What kind of place is the 9 heavens immortal realm you mentioned?" Hearing this, he smiled and shook his head. "I can't say that because it's very likely that you won't be able to ascend in this lifetime. You have to know that in order for you to ascend, you have to go through 81 heavenly thunders to become an immortal. Since the Almighty above is trying to kill you, how could they let you go through 81 heavenly thunders?" He smiled and said, "Let's talk about these things when you have a chance to ascend and become an immortal." As soon as he finished speaking, he downed the wine in his cup in one gulp and then collapsed onto the deck of the boat. He held his head with one hand and closed his eyes as he rested on his side. Obviously, he didn't want to talk to Fengjiu anymore. Fengjiu glanced at him and pursed his lips. He didn't say anything else and just waved his hand to remove the soundproof barrier. He stood up and walked around. She came to the front of the ship's bow and watched the ship glide through the clouds. She watched as the wind and clouds brushed past the ship's hull. She looked at the endless horizon in front of her and could not help but turn back to look at the 3 children. She made up her mind. Chapter 4666. 2 days later, the airship was slowly flying in the sky. The people on the ship were either cultivating or resting. Everything looked so peaceful. However, in this seemingly peaceful sky, the weather suddenly darkened. At first, the wind whistled, causing the ship to sway a little. Then, a drizzle fell from the sky like needles. "Why is it suddenly raining?" Dufan opened his eyes and looked at the sudden change in the sky. Seeing the drizzle fall like needles, he couldn't help but stand up in surprise. There was a barrier formed by spiritual power around the ship. Regardless of whether it was wind or rain, it couldn't blow in. Therefore, he stood at the bow of the ship and looked at the sudden change in the sky, observing for any abnormalities. "What's wrong? Is something wrong?" Lunghua walked over and asked. He also looked at the sky that was raining. Seeing that the sky was dark, he asked, "Should we find a place to stop first? Didn't Master enter the space to refine pills? He probably won't be able to come out now." Dufan said, still looking at the sky. He felt that the atmosphere in the sky was somewhat oppressive. "Master entered the space and can't come out. Then we'll control the airship to land. It's going to stop below. You see, the wind is getting stronger and stronger, and it's raining. The airship will be unstable during flight." Lunghua said, thinking that it was necessary to find a place to stop below. Hearing this, Dufan nodded. That's good. Let me see what's below. As he spoke, he came to the side of the ship and looked down at the clouds. He also released his divine sense and looked down. Du Fan, quick, let's move the airship and stop below. Lung Hua's voice changed slightly, with a trace of surprise. Du Fan, who was looking down with his divine sense, quickly turned back. What's wrong? Du Fan turned back and saw that his expression had changed slightly. Following his gaze, he saw that about 10 meters in front of their airship, there was a whirlpool in the sky. The whirlpool was extremely large, and it was pitch black inside. It made whistling sounds in the wind and rain. It was as if there was a suction force, sucking their airship into the whirlpool. The airship, which was flying slowly, moved forward much faster. Not good. Hurry and call Master, Du Fan exclaimed and asked Lung Hua to call their master. He immediately used his spiritual power to control the airship to turn around and descend. However, they had somewhat underestimated the power of the whirlpool. Even though the spaceship had turned around under Du Fan's control and was descending, the whirlpool suction was still extremely terrifying. It was as if there was a pair of hands inside the whirlpool that was pulling them in. The spaceship was uncontrollably pulled toward the whirlpool. Moreover, because it was being forcefully sucked in, the airship tilted slightly. This movement was felt by the 3 children who were cultivating in the side room. They quickly ran out to see what was going on. Hurry and go in. Don't come out. Lung Hua pushed them in, afraid that they would encounter an accident when they came out. Therefore, the 3 children were pushed back into the cabin by Lung Hua as soon as they took a step out. Moreover, because of the tilting of the airship, they could not stand steadily and fell around. Master! Master!